Welcome to the April 7th, 2025 meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. This is Select Board Chair Vineet Hemapathy. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Zwerko?
Here.
Andrew Lamb?
Here.
Mark Gold?
Here.
Josh Levine?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons?
Here.
Mike Barbieri?
Here.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town's website, identifying how the public may join. There's no chat or Q&A function. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comments section of the meeting, and I will call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. Great. And now we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Select Board announcements are next. The annual town meeting is set for May 13th in the Long Meadow High School gym. The final warrant will be available on April 14th and will be delivered to each household, including opt-outs, via the reminder on April 24th. For additional information and resources, please visit longmeadowma.gov/townmeeting. The annual town election is set for Tuesday, June 3rd. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Long Meadow Community House. For additional information and a list of important dates and reminders, please visit longmeadowma.gov/elections. Long Meadow Public Schools is excited to invite community members to an interactive event designed to engage and inform the public about the district's proposed new middle school building project. The event will take place on Thursday, April 10th at 7 p.m. in the Williams Middle School gym. This informal event will provide attendees with the unique opportunity to explore key aspects of the middle school project through a series of interactive stations. Each station will focus on a different element of the project. To learn more, please visit longmeadowma.gov/civic-alerts. And finally, the Town of Long Meadow municipal offices will be closed on Monday, April 21st for Patriots Day. Okay, and with that, we will move into resident comments. Do we have anyone here for resident comment?
Yes, sir.
All right. Name, address, and 3 minutes.
At least I don't have one for you, sorry. Pass those around. Thank you. Tom Shea, 81 Green Meadow Drive. Tonight, you will discuss a projected significant $530,000 shortfall in the 2025 water and sewer operations. Should also be discussing the important $609,000 deficiency in the board policy of water and sewer retained earnings. I'm a CPA and a CFA with almost 40 years of experience in accounting and finance. I ask that you give me a few extra minutes of time. It'll be worth it. In July of 2024, the Select Board unanimously voted to have the fourth quarter water and sewer billed at the previously approved budget rate for fiscal 2024. This was different than the original recommendation of billing it at the fiscal 2025 rates. For the audited financial statements, page 49 says water and sewer funds are on the accrual method of accounting. That means revenue are recorded as earned and expenses are recorded as incurred. The revenue derived from usage April 30th through July 5th was earned at the rate for fourth quarter 2024. August 12th was the rate setting for fiscal 2025. See pages 3 to 5. We took the net operating budget divided by the number of units. That was for fiscal 2025. Had nothing to do with what happened fourth quarter 2024. As an aside, I would suggest that when you approve rates this year, you get a full budget just like you do for every other department. Line item budget. You can't just do a single numerator denominator. The shortfall memo. I disagree with the assertion that there was a warning of budget shortfalls. Review the Long Meadow TV broadcast of July 15th at the 2:56 mark. Mr. Gold and Dr. Lamb asked a series of questions. My interpretation and what actually happened is the difference in revenue was for the fourth quarter of 2024. There was some uncertainty, but the conclusion was the rate would not impact the 2025 budget. You've got my notes there. Shortfall analysis. The combined shortfall is $530,000. $209,000 was mentioned as the revenue difference. That leaves $321,000 unidentified. Where'd that come from? I believe you need further analysis. The shortfall analysis needs to be redone. See page 2 of 10. And my advice is take no action until this is done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shea.
Oh, you're killing me.
Any other resident comments?
Read it.
We have anyone online, Mike?
No.
No.
Doesn't look like it.
Great. All right, thank you. And we can move into select board comments. I just have a quick select board comment. Just an update on the fiber work. At the beginning of March, our contractor Fiber Spring, they finished all of their walkouts. It was a very difficult winter with a lot of snow and a lot of bad weather, but it took them about a month to do that. This actually required them to go to every single pole in the town and assess it. So they walked over, I think, 93 miles in doing this, but that is completed, and they are now well into the design engineering phase. So that's just an update on what's going on with the fiber projects. Anyone else? Josh?
Just a brief one. I was out last week at my sons had soccer practice at Turner Park behind the baseball stadium, one of the soccer fields. And I know I just want to commend the DPW and Parks and Rec on the plan to not use that field for a while. It has really come back. This is a big, something we all hear about all the time, and something that we need to be very cognizant of going forward is usage. And it really dovetails well, I think, with the discussion about the turf versus grass fields. Because our fields just get overworked and need time to recover. And you can see it looking at Turner Park.
Great, thank you. And Dan, you had something?
Yeah, thanks. Excuse me. Over the weekend, I attended the Earth Day cleanup. I think it was on Saturday. I was down at the Meadows. We had a large group. There was about 15 of us. I was team captain again this year, and just wanted to say thank you to Arlene Miller, Liz Bone, Andrea Chasen, and really close to probably 100 volunteers across the town. Again, I was down in the Meadows, and it always amazes me just how much trash is actually down there, and it's just tires, cans, a ton of different items, but we managed to pull out like 20 bags of trash, which, like I said, that was just my group. So I know there are groups across the town, but every year, look forward to that event. It's a great event put on by those who I'd mentioned previously, and just wanted to thank everyone for coming out and lending a hand. And then also, Josh mentioned the turf study. Last week, I had attended the turf study. Unfortunately, there was only about 15 people, and I've been in town for a long time, and that's pretty consistent, unfortunately, when we have these types of forums. But It was tape recorded, I believe, Lynn, and so you can grab it online and get some more information. But this is certainly not going to be solved overnight. There's going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of passionate discussion if you're at the forum. So look forward to the conversation as we move forward.
Great, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, just a couple updates on meetings and organizations. You know, the Scannick Valley Health Trust continues to meet. They're on target for their finances, and which means that the 4% increase that we have for next year is looking pretty solid, and there have no plans on changing that. And their projections for what that would do to their budget this year have pretty much been right on. So kudos to that group, and Paul Pasterzik, who's their treasurer, takes care of it. The other thing is just, I want to just issue another reminder to everybody in town that the PVTA runs buses for free, and we should be taking advantage. There's not a whole lot of buses that go through Long Meadow, but we should be taking buses to the extent that we can. It is free, and it's actually your tax dollars at work because it's being subsidized by the state and ultimately, I guess, the federal government.
Great, thank you. Okay, and so we can move over to the town manager's report.
Thank you. Do have a long one tonight, so I will try to be quick. An update on the Long Meadow Street L project and water line replacement. The advertisement date for MassDOT construction project has been pushed back to June. The project bid needs to advertise for 90 days. This pushes the project award and possibly construction start date back. And then the water line work that's coming in front of this work has started back up again for the spring. Construction includes installation of a 12-inch ductile water line centered on Converse Street and will run to the Converse Street Laurel Street intersection, and this work is expected to take a few weeks. From there, the work will shift to water line replacement on Llewellyn Street. Water main installation on Llewellyn should take 2 weeks. Night work in the intersections of Long Meadow Street, Forest Glen, Western Drive intersection is tentatively scheduled to take place in about a month. As with any construction project, the schedules are tentative and subject to change. Long Meadow Street Route 5 resurfacing, this is called Phase 1. At the March 10th meeting, I announced the MassDOT public hearing for another phase of Long Meadow Street, the Route 5 work. I mistakenly referred to it as Phase 2, as if the Long Meadow Street L project was Phase 1. This is actually considered Phase 1. Phase 2 is not scheduled yet and encompasses the area from the end of Phase 1 to the Enfield line. As previously mentioned, the L project is not considered a phase in this work. The design public hearing for Phase 1 is scheduled for May 8th at 6:30 p.m. at Greenwood Center. A flyer for the project has been attached to my report, and we're working on notice to the affected area in advance of that May 8th meeting. And just as a reminder, this covers Converse Street to Birney Road. I have a notable DPW retirement to inform you on. On Friday, April 4th, DPW grounds foreman Steve Guzzo retired. Mr. Guzzo began working for the town in May of 2014 as a skilled labor and equipment operator. He was then promoted to grounds foreman in 2017. Thank you to Mr. Guzzo for your 11 years of service to the town, and we wish you well in your retirement. An update on the status of the 2024 audit. Much has been going on in the background related to the preparation for the town's fiscal year 2024 audit. I asked the town's finance director to prepare a status report because there's been a lot of movement in the last few days, meaning last week. And so this is the update provided to me by Finance Director Ian Coddington. He's providing an update on the status of the FY24 audit, and as of April 2nd, 2025, CBIZ, the town's auditing firm, now has everything they need to complete the audit. Just as a reminder, on Monday, December 16th, 2024, the Select Board voted to approve an extension of CBIZ as their audit contract was set to expire on December 31st. At that time, CBIZ had finished its testing and was waiting for Hampden County Retirement Systems statements to complete the town's audit. This was not available as of the December meeting. For the next 4 months, Lynn, myself, and Ian communicated with Tanya Campbell, the audit partner, and Nadia Shodka, the audit manager, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name right, about the delay and any updates. Ian had also reached out to other communities and to the executive director of the Hampden County Retirement System to inquire about the delay. Finally, at the end of March, I reached out to the Hamden County Retirement Director to press for a date when the town would receive the necessary information to complete its audit. Between that time, I'm adding this in here, but between that time, between end of December and end of March, there had been very little updates provided. And we just kept getting told that they're working on it, they're working on it. And so, when I reached out the end of March to press for an actual date, they said they would provide an update soon, but that she did not have a date that it would be done. This year, the audit has been unique, and as historically, the Select Board has approved the audit in December. On April 2nd, 2025, the Hamden County Retirement Board voted to approve the actuarial valuation for 1/1/2024 and the 12/31/23 Government Accounting Standards Board Statements 67 and 68. Ian was able to confirm with Erica LaCours, the Assistant Director at Hamden County Retirement, on April 3rd, 2025, that these votes took place. These documents are required to complete our annual audit, and they provide the town a financial reporting of our pension plan and updated actuarial estimates of our net pension liability, our future contribution requirements, and other pertinent information. This comes after months of being on hold as the Hamden County Retirement System was going through a system conversion that delayed their audit. This delay has held up the town from completing its FY24 audit, in turn holding us up from issuing new debt and acquiring surety bonds to allow us to move forward with our fiber pole applications. We were not alone in our frustration with Hamden County Retirement, as all communities participating in the system have anxiously been awaiting the report's completion. Ian wants to thank Tanya Campbell, Nadia Shodka, and their audit team for help working through this progress, as we needed to file multiple extensions. He would also like to thank Brianne Susel from Unibank Financial Advisor, who helped keep the town in compliance with our reporting requirements for our issued debt while we waited for the financial statements to be finalized. All of that information has been provided to our auditing firm, and they are close to completing our FY24 audit. An update on road resurfacing and potholes. As we know, spring's not kind to New England roads, and I had provided an update on February 24th on the status of pothole work and the road resurfacing bond. This report tonight is meant to update that February 24th report. Asphalt plants recently opened on March 24th. DPW is now obtaining hot mix and patching every day the weather allows. They do keep a priority list of roads, which is loosely Long Meadow Street, Converse Street, Bliss Road, Williams, and Shaker. That theme with priority roads are main roads and ambulance routes. As a reminder, all potholes should be reported to Public Works at longmeadowma.gov. And just to provide some context here, a pothole patching crew consists of 3 to 4 people, as well as police details as needed. The crew ideally is out every day now that the asphalt plants are open. However, this is also the same crew that handles catch basin repairs, down trees, repairs to dirt roads, hydrant repairs, sewer backups, bank stabilization, picking up roadkill, as well as responding to a variety of other daily complaints from residents. Additionally, there are vacation days, illnesses, and weather challenges that impact this 3 to 4 person crew. There is a claim process if you are unfortunately struck by a pothole or a pothole strikes you, and you receive damage to your vehicle. You can file a claim, and it'll go through the town's insurance company. An update to the road resurfacing bid. Bids were put out on March 5th with a due date of March 26th. The low bidder was Caracas Construction at $4.7 million. As a reminder, town meeting authorized borrowing of $5.1 million, so that bid came in at $407,000 less than we anticipated. The bid award is being prepared and a contract is being readied. We have not gone out to bond yet. Until we sign the contract and have a pre-construction meeting with the selected contractor, we won't know the schedule of work or the timing. Once the schedule is developed, another update will be provided. And I do provide a list here of the streets that were targeted to be done in that warrant article, and also during my February 24th update, that list of streets has not changed. And as was previously mentioned, we held a public presentation on natural grass versus artificial turf. This was the study that was recently completed by Tom Irwin Associates for the town. A copy of the slide deck and the Zoom recording are available on the town manager's page of the Long Meadow website. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Lynn. Anything? Mark?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Lynn, what are we going to do to try to get residents that DOT hearing on Phase 1, it was, we heard people come in and say, nobody ever told me about, the L project, Dan kind of said it, 12 people show up kind of thing, but we got to do something different, I would think.
Yep.
Is there any thought given to that?
In terms of whether it's different or not than what was done in the prior round, I'm not sure, because I wasn't here for that notification period. What we're internally working on now is potentially a code red notification to that locus area, and possibly flyering or going door to door, although that'll depend on the amount of staff we have available. But the Traffic and Roads Advisory Group is meeting in the next few weeks, and I've asked them to look at this issue to figure out ways that we can try to provide notice to people. But I will caution that no matter what effort we go to, people will still come to us in 3 to 7 years, whenever this project is ready to break ground, that they did not know about it. So we could take every step possible, and that will still happen. Properties will transfer during that time frame, and that's a lot of time to go by between a design public hearing and then actually breaking construction. So people do lose sight of the fact that we did public notice on something years prior.
How do we, thank you, another topic, how do we use the problems at Hampden County Retirement Board? And this is a, 6-month delay or something like that in their actuarial report. How do we use that to demonstrate to the people who need to? I mean, at least to you and me and a few of us, we kind of recognize how do we use that to our advantage to recognize that something's got to be done, to either get them on the stick or get them out of there and let us do something. Is there any thought at all of how we can do that?
I don't have any specific ideas at this point, but I have made several contacts to PERAC about the delays and the impacts it caused the town.
Even if PERAC was to go to because there is legislation out there somewhere that may or may not get heard this year that requires a reform of the retirement board. It would be wonderful if PERAC could say, yeah, they've really got problems and this reform would really help. But anyway, I'd love to see us contact Representative Ash and Senator Oliveira or somebody because this has just been, the whole town and 36 towns and communities has been a mess. So, and I know you know that. The last question I have is, we indicated that the paving went to a company called Caracas. Have they done any work in Long Meadow or other surrounding towns? That's a name I've never heard before.
It's a name that's familiar to me. I'm not entirely sure if they've done work in town before, but I do know of the construction
okay.
company.
All right, thanks.
Great. Anything else from the board? Okay. Thank you, Glenn. We can then move into old business. We are going to skip over approving meeting minutes. We'll get to a bunch of those at our next meeting. And then we will next talk about our FY 2025 water and sewer rate discussion. So we have a memo attached to the agenda that was prepared by Ian and Lisa. Lisa, if you can move up to the microphone, thank you. And this basically is about the change in the way that we build our water, or the way that we did the water rates, and that we knew that there was going to be a shortfall that was going to be coming this year, and so this is to kind of address that. So Ian and Lisa, I'll kind of kick it over to you all to go through the memo and talk about your recommendation.
Sure. Members of the Select Board, good evening. My name is Ian Connaughton. I'm the Finance Director. I'm going to go over with you guys today the water sewer enterprise rates, the history of last year's recommendation, where we are today, and steps that we can take in order to deal with the current shortfall and retained earnings deficit. So in July of '24, the Select Board voted to set the water and sewer rates as well as the stormwater rates. The new rates went into effect in July and were applied during the first billing cycle during the year, which applies to October, November 24. So just as a historical note, this was a long discussion that took place over, 3 to 4 Select Board meetings. The discussion about the water sewer rates began in April 1st, that we discussed during the fiscal year budget. We discussed the impact of higher than expected water and sewer rates on the residents, and I put together a memo for presentation at the June 3rd, 2024 Select Board meeting to go over the current status at that time and where next year was looking. What followed was a long discussion that took place, including a meeting with the Springfield Water Sewer Commission, as one of the main components of our increase from last year was a large increase in our Springfield water sewer rates. Ultimately, the rate proposals were voted on and accepted at the July 15th meeting. I would like to show the accepted FY25 proposal for water, which includes the updated Springfield water sewer rate and the expenses related to debt service on the water main improvements bond that were taken out during 2024. Thanks, Mike. Might have to, yeah. So this gives us a projected rate of $4.52, and this shows 1.9 million of Springfield water sewer charges, 796,000 of expenses, 500,000 of salaries, and then 952,000 of debt service related to the Long Meadow Water Main Improvements Project. This was bonded in 2024. This all agrees to what was set at our annual budget meeting for FY 2025, which drives our rates. I would also like to note that this includes the base rate distribution charge, where we increased it slightly from year to year, as well as the increase in interest revenue due to positive effects in the market. I'd like to note that as part of our monthly reports that I submit to the Select Board, I complete the estimated receipts, which gives a month-to-month look at local receipts, property taxes, state revenues, and most importantly, enterprise funds. I also meet with Sean Van Duzen and Lisa on a monthly basis to discuss any upcoming expenses for DPW and discuss the revenue outlook. This is something that we have been monitoring, and it's something that we feel is pertinent enough to bring to your attention at this point. At this time, based upon usage projections, the Water Division is projecting a $400,000 shortfall, and the Sewer Division is projecting a $130,000 shortfall. Additional revenue is needed to cover the sewer and water operating budgets, and today at this meeting we have presented some possibilities. Option one is to completely liquidate the enterprise fund retained earnings for water of $273,000, reduce the water operating budget by $50,000, increase the unit rate from $4.52 that was approved last year to $5.10, which is a 12.85% increase, and increase the meter rate by 20% across all different meter sizes. Each meter would see a 20% increase in rate. This would generate an additional $58,842 in revenues to increase the water unit rate, and for the water meter rate, this would generate additional $10,000. We also have the option to only increase the water meter rates, a flat fee of $70 across all existing rates. This would generate $400,000 of meter fees, which would completely cover our shortfall. Or the third option that we presented is increase the water unit rate from $4.52 to $8.38 per unit, or 85% increase in the rate. This would generate $392,000 in revenue. As a note, January to March usage averages about $101,000 over the past 3 years. In order to fund the enterprise fund deficit for sewer, we would look to do one of three options. Use the enterprise fund retained earnings. There's $130,000, which would reduce the balance to $43,000. Use a portion of the sewer enterprise fund retained earnings, about half, $70,000, and increase the sewer unit rate from $3.51 to $4.20 per unit, or about 20% increase, which would generate about $66,000 in additional revenue. Or simply increase the unit rate without touching the retained earnings to move it from $3.51 to $4.90 per unit, or a 40% increase, which would generate $134,000 additional revenues. As an additional note, January to March averages about 96,000 units over the past 3 years. With this in mind, I give you the following recommendations. Liquidate the water enterprise fund retained earnings. Reduce the water operating budget, specifically the water division salary line, by $50,000. Increase the water unit rate from $4.52 to $5.10, or a 12.85% increase. And increase the water meter rate by 20% as shown. For the sewer, use a portion of the sewer enterprise fund retained earnings, $70,000, and increase the sewer unit rate from $3.51 to $4.20 to generate $66,000 of additional revenues. The question that might come up first is, why would we liquidate the water enterprise fund, given the fact that the policy states that we want to keep a minimum of $500,000 in the retained earnings? One of the reasons that we talked about liquidating the retained earnings is that by increasing the unit rate, that directly applies to our residents. So if there are residents that use more water than others, this would impact them, but this would also impact residents that don't use as much water, who might be more severely impacted by a rate increase. I felt that it would be better served to use our retained earnings instead of given a larger than expected increase, especially on 1/4 of revenues. This applies to the same thought for sewer, where we had enough sewer enterprise fund retained earnings where we did not need to deplete the balance in order to cover this deficit. The idea in mind that upon our discussion in the coming months, we would look to increase the water and sewer rates based on the study given by Ty and Bond, whereas we would be able to supplement this retained earnings going forward and build back our balance. Ultimately, this will take a few years for us to build back a balance of our minimum, but we can start making progress towards it now.
Thank you. And Ian, I think you kind of touched on it just now, but you presented us with these different options and then made a recommendation. Do you want to maybe speak to at all why you think that that option, that recommendation is better than the other options?
Sure. So again, I'll kind of emphasize that our goal is to minimize the rate impact felt by residents, because not all of our residents have the disposable income to harbor such a large increase. So the goal would be to minimize the impact that they're felt. The two options that were presented to you now, I feel, generate the least amount of impact on all of our residents, whether or not they have the disposable income to harbor a larger increase.
Great, thank you. And Lisa, I know you'll probably get some questions, but is there anything you want to add at this stage?
No, Ian did pretty good at covering it. Certainly, it's not an increase that we want to give to the residents, but it's something that we're going to have to do to balance the budget this year.
Great, thank you. All right, Josh.
I got a few things. One, just generally, I think our meter rate is still way too low, because this is a very modest increase, and I think just generally, I've been banging on this drum a bit. Everyone's connected. We all need this. It's all. I think that should be spread out more on that. I think that people on fixed income, I don't think they use a lot of water anyway. The rate increase isn't going to matter. And my third point is, I think no matter what we do with the rates, there's going to be people who are going to use a lot of water. So all that being said, I've been thinking a lot about this. The retained earnings, I'm a little squeamish about dispersing that. One, I wanted your take on what our policies are on this, our select board policies. And two, I know that Ty and Bond is going to recommend that we up our reserve funds up to $1 million each. So I would like your thought on if it's a good idea for us to start us at zero rather than at a couple $100,000 if we're trying to get to $1 million. And whatever my first question was, I forgot as I was talking.
Sure. I certainly don't want to deplete the enterprise fund's retained earnings. I guess my plan was to offer this as the recommendation, and I figured there would be discussion about if that was not felt to be the best course, that I would have the ability to run numbers to determine if there were a better solution felt by the select board. I think that ultimately, I agree in the sense that if the reserve balance minimum were to change to $1 million, starting at zero would not be the best case, especially given the fact that we know that water maintenance has been deferred for many years, and we are one accident away from having major water breakages, and that can really impact the town as a whole. So I recognize that depleting the retained earnings isn't always the best option, but I certainly don't want the residents to feel the impact, and I think that that's where my mind is comfortable with.
Oh, if you mind,
Yeah,
one more. We all know the rates are gonna go up. We've been talking about it for years, and Time Bond will certainly recommend that to us. I would like to see us ramp up as slow as possible, even though, like I said, I don't think it's going to change actions as much. But to the extent that we can tell, this is why we made this change in the first place, people know what's coming, and if we can plan it out and game it out, so it's a slope rather than going straight up, I think that that's ideal. And so I think there may be a hybrid approach that we can take somewhere in the middle, using less retained earnings, although that, like the water fund, that, if a water main break, what is this, 2 water main breaks? And if it's a major issue, that's not gonna cover anything. So I would like to see us find some middle ground, option 1 is a middle ground, I think. But if there was a way, and if the other, I don't know what the other members are thinking, but if we can keep some money in water retained, I would feel more comfortable and maybe raise the meter rate.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was, believe it or not, looking forward to was the actual study itself to kind of justify, which we understand there's going to be a lot of costs that are going to be involved and rates are going to increase, but I just have a difficult time falling on a number when I don't know exactly the projects that we have in front of us, or what this report and study is actually going to show us. So I guess my question, one of them at least, is what's the impact of not doing anything today and waiting until the study comes forward? Just so we at least know that we're voting on something that is tangible, that we're going to see results based on upcoming projects and needs for the town.
Sure. So in terms of the impact if we did not take any action today, so if I'm correct, Lynn, we're getting the rate study on the 7th, on May 7th?
May 5th.
May 5th.
And that's a study looking forward.
Yes. So I know in my last discussion with Sean and Lisa, water and sewer spending has been paused in an effect to kind of limit the amount of damage that is done by having such a huge shortfall. So in terms of spending, that means that right now we are kind of mitigating that potential to be more, but at the same time, the risk is that something could pop up without us being able to address it quickly. On the other side of it, the longer we wait to increase the rates, the more residents will feel that, well, I shouldn't say feel that, but the more we will be essentially setting the rates after the residents have used the water and sewer. So this is something that we talked about in the past avoiding, because we don't want to retroactively change rates after residents have used the services, because then, how can you justify increasing rates after I've already used them? And I certainly don't want that to be a sticking point. So in terms of impact, 1, we have mitigating the potential spend for going forward for the next, for the last quarter of the year. But 2, we can certainly not take any action tonight, but the longer we wait, the more it's a retroactive payment. So we would be seeing more where we are at in another month if we generate more revenues, but that's
Could I add to that?
Sure.
So right now, we're talking about the billing that will be going out in May to hopefully get the revenue in this fiscal year. The presentation at Time Bond is more looking at FY26 rates so that next year's budget is balanced. So this is trying to balance this year and increase the rate for the next billing.
Thank you. And the other question that I had was for the meter rate. So when we talk about potentially it's option 2, so 5,700 plus users, $70. Is that $70 meter fee? Is that over just in the next billing cycle? Are we talking about, or is it spread out?
That was to just do an even share of every user pays the same amount extra to cover the cost. So that's sort of like the extreme of, it was $70 per user.
And what is that? I'm trying to gather the impact from some of the users on the high end and the low end, and what that $70
So like
means.
a regular user might be getting a charge of $725 per quarter right now. It would have jumped it to $77.25 in this last bill.
For this is a one-time.
One time only type of,
This then brings us to the $400,000,
yes,
dollar.
the shortfall.
and then we have the Time Bond study looking forward for next year based on additional rates, and these rates would stay the same for option 2. It would just be the,
I think this would be a one time, it wouldn't stay that high.
so the rates would, the actual rates themselves wouldn't change. This would just be a water meter rate at $70 to get us to the
For this
400.
quarter.
And then we fast forward, we go through the study, and then we would actually be able to adjust those rates based on needs and the study that's shown, and we have a better idea of what that might look like. And of course, we could also adjust the meter rate. Maybe at that time, we adjust the meter rate back as well, so. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of wrap my hands around some of the options here.
Andrew?
Thank you for this. I agree that there are many ways to kind of handle this. It's interesting that we're only talking about one time, basically, to get this fiscal year balanced. I kind of agree with Josh in the sense, in two components. I'm not really excited about taking the retained earnings down to 0. I also think that the water meter rate is not only low, but it's going to go much higher in the future, right? So it's $7.25, which is so low. Basically, you only pay, multiply that out by 4 quarters, $32 to have the privilege of having a water hookup in our town. You know, I looked at the $70 and thought, whoa, that's a little bit steep, you know? So I was interested in maybe kind of doing a hybrid, but also just doing a little tinkering here. So, I mean, I was wondering if Ian could consider, like, what if we said, let's try to keep $50,000 or $100,000 in the retained earnings fund, raise the water meter rate by not $70, but $30, and then see what that does to the water rate. The benefit of doing a hybrid is this. If you just did the water meter going up, this is like the debate whether we're communist or a capitalist kind of town to fix this situation, right? So if you raise everyone $70, we can fix this and it's communist. Everyone's paying the same no matter how much water you use. But if you just do the water rate increase, 85% increase in water rate to $8.38, which is astronomical, then it's really purely based on what water you used, you know? So I think that finding a middle ground is a good idea.
I'd like to take your poli-sci class.
Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to take a minute and kind of go back. This is more for the people at home who are listening to this for the first time than the people on the select board. But the old school says that, you know, people are calling it the retained earnings fund, whatever. I always knew it as called the water stabilization fund. You know, why? Because for people who don't know, the way the water department works is unlike the rest of our departments. For our town, we have our CFO and our town manager and others say, this is what we think the revenue is going to be. Now let's set expenses to make sure that we don't overspend the revenue. The water department and sewer department flip that. What we say is, here's what our expenses are going to be, okay? And now let's set the revenue to match the expenses. That's a very big flip on what we generally do for budgets. So what do we have for expenses in the water department? We buy water from the city of Springfield. Everybody knows that. We run a water department. Everybody knows that. We also have a capital cost, which is the cost of putting bonding for all the water projects we do. And we also have used in the past adjustments to the stabilization fund. When the stabilization fund had been very, very high, we'd say, let's pull a little bit out of that as revenue back to the ratepayers. And that's what we do for our, how we set our expenses. Excuse me, what we do is we say we've got to adjust for the stabilization fund. So if the stabilization fund is low, we say, look, we need to add $100,000 to the stabilization fund. So we've got to bring in more revenue for that as well. So we'll have maybe those four sources of where we've got to meet. And then how do we set the revenue? Well, we say the revenue consists of really only two things, maybe three. Two things: a fixed charge, which we've all talked about here, it's a meter charge, okay? And then there's the variable charge. Now, there's also a charge because of revenue that we can take money out of the stabilization fund, or in the case of this past year, when we had some borrowing that we took, Ian, we talked about that at one point, there's excess interest coming that goes back to the water department, right? So hopefully that's in there, okay? And then we say that's how much money we need to raise, because we need to raise that as revenue to match the expenses we already said. And here's the key point. We then estimate, we guesstimate, we guess. We've taken a process where we use the average of the last 3 years running average of water purchased, and we say we're going to take the amount of money we need, divide it by the units of water, and that's the rate. So the rate is really established based on our guess. I went through this because I think it's important for the people at home to understand why we are where we are. Okay? Last year, the select board decided that we would bill for the last quarter of 2024 at 2024 rates, even though the revenue came in 2025. When we did that, we were told, there'll be a shortfall. There'll be a difference. Because if you build it at the new rate, you get more money. We said, we know that. And frankly, I think the number you said today was $200,000 or something like that, Ian. Hey, in my opinion, it's my opinion only, if the water stabilization fund had been at its targeted rate, and the difference had only been $200,000, or had been as much as $200,000, I would have said, that's what the stabilization fund is for. We'll suck down the stabilization fund a little bit, and we'll pay the extra money, okay? But we also had, and I don't know, Mike, if you want to put up a graph, we get a chart every month from the water department. Mike, is that something you can put up, the
I
chart?
think it's on this agenda, actually. Yeah.
Okay, it's on the agenda, okay. Because I think it's important for people to see the chart. Nope, it's the water purchased one, it's the one below that.
Right above that one, Mike.
Oh.
YTV.
He's a little rusty, he's been out.
Usually they're compiled, but.
That's it, there it is. Okay, so it's the bottom graph that's important to all of us, because once we can see that, what we'll see is on the far right, April, May, and June, the blue line represented the last year, which was what we used to pay for this year. Notice how low that is relative to the other lines. And then move to the left side, the orange line, okay, is this year's usage. So the conclusion you can draw from this is that water usage in 2025, fiscal 2025, is at I won't say historic, but it's much lower than our 3-year running projection that we used. And so remember, I went back to say the way we came up with the rate is we said we need to raise this much money, and we divided it by the usage. We used the value of 825,000 units. And that's how we came up with our $4.80 or whatever we came up with. What we should have done, but we didn't know, is say it wasn't going to be 825,000 units. The number is going to be something more like 750,000, or maybe 730,000 units. And if we had done that, we wouldn't have set the rate at $4.80. We would have had to set the rate something higher, maybe $5.10, $5.12, something like that. The reason I bring this up is because and oh, by the way, and if we'd had that shortfall, and only that shortfall, the Water Stabilization Fund probably could have, should have, and would have absorbed that difference as well, because that's what it's there for. Because we never know precisely what amount of water will be used by the residents. We're always estimating, and we use this 3-year running average, but we're never right on the money. The problem is this past year, it's kind of been a confluence of two issues. There's that first quarter issue that was $200,000, which again, had it been one and by itself, we would have said, okay, that's fine. But then there's the rest of the year where our revenue came in below what it should have come in had we been using 825,000 units. Together, those values exceed what is in our Water Stabilization Fund. Same thing applies, everything I said for water applies for sewer, and the funds exceed it. My concern here is that we can talk about what's coming down the road, what Ty and Bond's going to do, what is going to happen in 2026 through 2029, and all but the dollar figure we've gotten today is a 2025 problem, consisting of those two elements. We chose to not bill the first quarter at the old rates, or at the new rates. We billed it at the old rates. We chose to do that. We knew it was it was going to be a shortfall, and it was, or a difference. But the water usage was low. So what's my suggested answer? In a perfect world, and this isn't quite now, you go back to everybody and say, you know that $4.80 we charged you all this past year? We really should have been charging you $5.10. We're going to go back and charge you $5.10 for all the water you used, because it is a rate per unit difference that occurred. That's what happened. It was a rate per unit difference. We didn't make a mistake. We just used a number that turned out that Mother Nature fooled us. Mother Nature made it a much wetter year than we thought. Water usage was down, and therefore we didn't use 825,000 units. So my solution is, let's fix the problem that we have for 2025. Don't worry about 2026. When we set the rates for 2026, we're going to get smarter. Why? Because this 3-year running average is going to have this low number in it now from 2025, so we'll have much lower units. I suspect next year's units will go way below 825,000, as they should. So what would my suggestion be, Ian? You know, in a perfect world, again, we go back to everybody and we rebuild them. I talked to Lisa today. This isn't a perfect world. That isn't going to happen. What the alternative is say, we ought to have a water stabilization fund and a sewer stabilization fund that can absorb this shock from a very wet year. And then we go about our business of making it right next year, where we add to the revenue next year the cost of water we buy from Springfield, the capital costs we buy, and we add in money to build back up the stabilization fund for next year. And so my suggestion is we go out and we actually borrow money for the water and sewer stabilization funds, charge that to the water and stabilization fund and the sewer stabilization fund, because they are enterprise funds. They are truly, uniquely encapsulated. And then we build back in, because a ban is exactly what this is for, short-term borrowing, and we build back in the repayment of that ban and the rebuilding of our stabilization fund into the rates for 2026. And that way the money and the cost of doing that gets distributed appropriately to people based on their use. And yes, we can add in a different rate for the meter connection if we want to, because whatever we want to do, that's our authority to do. But the problem is a 2025 problem, and people have already used the water. It's very, very difficult to say, Ian, you had said, we don't want to charge people in the future for water they already used, but yet we need to make this correction in this fiscal year. And so, you know, if we bill them now, okay, they've already used the water January through March. So by your own admission, it's not something we want to do. If we bill them in July, it's the next fiscal year. So we've got to come up with a solution that gets money into this fiscal year to pay for these components. And it's strictly, in my opinion, Mother Nature did us dirt by having a wet year. We used less water, and we didn't have sufficient stabilization fund money to pay for it. So let's put in that stabilization fund money, pay for it, and then move forward.
Dan?
Thank you. Well, one of the things I want to say first, not using a lot of water that's a good thing. So that's a positive. But I think to your point, Mark, one of the things that we didn't mention was part of the reason why we voted that way, or was because we didn't want to bill folks on rates. Like ethically, I just personally, I felt,
I'm not saying we change that. I agree.
So I mean, I think that's what people should understand. We didn't. The reason why we did it this way, knowing there was going to be a deficit, was because we did not want to bill people at a higher rate on water that they already consumed. That's like, yeah. So I just want to be clear to.
I appreciate it.
To the
And Dan, the purpose of my comment is that we didn't screw up. We planned on the first difference, because just as you said, we didn't want to bill people for water they have used. And then Mother Nature threw us a curve for the rest of it. But this wasn't because we screwed up. This is because we just didn't have the $500,000 to cover this difference.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just one last point. So when we're talking about the meter rate, you know, we're not always in control, of course, of what's happening with the water situation. So whether we have a lot of rain, or whether residents are using more water or less water, but if we look at the meter rate, that at least every year we know we have X amount of dollars, and that is something that I think, to Andrew's point, I think Josh made it earlier, I think that's something that most of us probably agree on, that if we have known, I guess, income from water sewer based on a set meter rate, we always know every year that we're going to have X amount of dollars, and we won't have as many big swings in either direction. And I think that's important when we're talking about budgeting, to actually know what we have coming in on a regular basis. And you know, this is not a problem that just happened in 2024. This has been going on for years, and every year we have the same conversation. So I am looking forward to the rate study and tie and bond study, but I do think we need to look at the meter rate itself, because that is something that we're going to be able to. It's not going to fluctuate up and down, and that's going to help us
Can I
with budgeting.
just answer that?
Can you make it quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you. My, you know, in a perfect world, and we're not, you know, the capital costs should be split among meter rates. But our capital costs are like $700,000, and we have, I think, $170,000 we raised per meter. But you're absolutely right, Dan. Absolutely right. Meter rates should pay for our fixed costs. I have no, and they're woefully low. Last year, if you remember, we finally moved from $1,550 up to, and it added $70,000, which is absolutely right.
Josh?
I think part of what our issue was, and Mark, I appreciate the history lesson. I think we heard it last year, but I looked at it with a different eye this year. The problem with our policy books, and that was my question that didn't get answered before, how does this fit into our policy? The problem with the policy is we have our Water Enterprise Fund policy mentions rate or reserves. We have a retained earnings policy that we can use retained earnings to offset rates, but the Water Enterprise Fund policy and stormwater and sewer do not mention retained earnings. They mention reserves. And also, our policies also say that our fees are a fixed meter charge based on the meter size, plus a fixed amount of rate reserve, which would build up the stabilization fund, which I agree is a good idea, and plus a consumption rate. So are we charging a rate reserve, or are we considering that as part of our our meter rate?
We have not added a line item for increasing rate reserve
So-
the last couple of years, Josh.
Yeah.
But we
did?
could have, and we probably should have.
We should have, and
But-
and we're.
But the bigger problem,
Which doesn't
Josh, is
fix
that
today.
that fund has been co-opted, that's a polite word, and we've used it for things like buying trucks and buying plows and it isn't a water rate stabilization fund or sewer rate. It is a water slush fund.
Right.
And that's part of the, I mean, if you look at where that money's gone over the last few years, we haven't used it to adjust for shortages. We've used it to buy capital items. And that's where the money's all gone. I remember last year we asked Ian to account for the water stabilization fund or enterprise fund or whatever you call it, and it was all capital. Very little, if any of it, was transferred to compensate for rates. So that's our fault for allowing, but we started that process when the water stabilization fund had $750,000, $800,000, $900,000 in it. In fact, at one point, we actually did a water project in town, and we said, don't bond it, just take it out of the fund because it's already there.
I think that's the problem with having the select board and the water and sewer commissioners be the same people, because we know that there's a pot there.
Yeah, but even when they were separate, they were doing it.
So, the ban idea is interesting, and it makes sense, because you put that, you're filling that hole here that you can fill in going forward. I'm just, concerned about cost going forward, how that would affect us, and just the expenses of it. Bond anticipation.
I was just going to say that when I looked at this, I'm more in line with what Josh and Andrew had been talking about, was doing this hybrid approach. I don't like the idea either of dwindling the water enterprise fund all the way down to zero. I think Andrew had said, maybe lowering it to 50 or 100, something like that. I think 50, basically, if it's 50, might as well be zero. So at least having 100,000 in there, because I think we've, at least in my time on the select board, we've had water main breaks where the costs have been 70,000 to 100,000. It obviously depends on the breaks, but there have been some breaks in that range, and this could potentially cover that. So doing something where we draw the enterprise fund down to 100,000, because this TIG and bond study is coming. This is a much bigger discussion that we have to fix this whole approach. I think for the time being, and from now until probably July 1st, when the new fiscal year starts, to draw that down to around 100,000, I think makes sense to just help fill this shortfall. And then I did like the idea as well with the water meter. That needs to see a big increase, and to increase that halfway, I think as Andrew proposed, to $35, that gets us there. And then as well as the $50,000 cut from the salary. If we do those three things, right, we could get to about $400,000. And so that is, I think, for me, the kind of approach that makes the most sense. I don't think that this needs to be overcomplicated. I think that we knew that this was coming. This is a one-time thing where we'll have to do a mid-year rate adjustment, and we have these, funding sources here that we can go to meet this one-time, occurrence. And I think that's the approach we should take.
Would $35 per meter, that would be $200,000? Just, okay.
Yeah.
Can you do that in this billing site? Can you do it in this fiscal year?
Can I make a couple observations? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very quickly, I agree. I think that we should try to solve this expeditiously. I appreciate everything you said, Mark. I understand everything you said. I don't like things being too complicated. I think the idea of getting a loan to kind of make it fairer is a little overly complicated. Dan made a very good point that makes me realize that any increase in the water rate that we use for this is doing exactly what we philosophically said we didn't really want to do, which is, we're basically going to charge people a higher rate based on what they used in January and March already, essentially. So I think that the steps are to basically choose what we want the retained earnings account to have, what's maybe $100,000, then decide what we want the water meter rate to be, like to increase $35, and then take the $50,000 from the salary line and see where we're at. If our goal is to have no water rate increase because we philosophically don't want to charge people water for that they already use, then that's what we do.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not, math isn't my forte, but I think if we draw the water enterprise fund down to 100,000, that's, 173,000 we're putting towards this. The water meter, if we put that up to $35, that's $200,000, and then plus, 50,000 from the salary, that gets us to 423,000. So there's still, about 23,000-ish there, right, that we can work with in terms of either the enterprise fund or the water meter to make that work.
So if we do 100,000 of retained earnings usage, and then keep the.
I'm sorry, just to clarify.
Yeah.
I think he means retain $100,000 in the account.
Yes.
So therefore, you're actually using $173,000.
Okay, perfect. So then, yes, we would be. Then we would be there, yeah. So if we retained 100,000 in the account, we use 173,000 of retained earnings. If we increase the water meter rate by $35, that would generate $200,165. And then reduce the water budget by the salary line item of $50,000, we would be able to cover our shortfall in the water enterprise fund.
In actuality, it's more than you need.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
So-
is.
So-
So you could reduce.
So
And I think, based, kind of what you, Dan and Andrew were saying about, retroactively billing folks,
that avoids that.
That avoids that completely. And then also, with the water meter rate, that is in some way doing that. So if we need to adjust that water meter rate, lower than $35, so that we
Whatever it
kind of
takes to
get
get to the
closer
400.
to, yeah, I think that would make the most sense.
Need-
Yeah.
I'd like a little bit more detail on that water meter rate to $35. I don't follow what it is, because this is a quarterly billing, this is a 1-quarter rate. Is this a permanent increase to $35 a quarter?
No,
Just one.
it's just a once, and then we will decide what is appropriate thereafter.
It's one time. Is it, according to the policy, is it proportional to, is it going to be a proportional increase, or just everybody goes up $35?
It would be a fixed $35 everyone.
It's kind
So-
Why? That's
Each-
not what the policy says. Policy says the fixed rate is proportional. That's what Josh just read.
No, it
What's
says,
proportional to the size of,
Right, it says proportional to the size of the meter. Exactly, Andrew. That's what it says.
But I mean, it's.
based upon the meter set, yeah, fixed
So,
equivalent, yeah,
so
that's
are
right.
you saying
It's
that,
still
that
proportion-
the
Yes.
small ones go up to $35, but the,
no, it's still proportional because what you're talking about
Right, so
is
it's not a-
$35 plus what their existing rate is. So the larger meters will still be paying more. It's basically take a look at his option 2. These rates are all different in the right column. They're just all gone up the same amount. Everyone's not going to be paying
I hear you,
$35.
but-
Exactly, it's $35 more than their current rate. Their current rates are all
It
different.
is spread a bit more
which is
on the
very
lower
different, which is,
ones,
I mean,
It's-
it's a way to do it.
Yeah, it's
but
certainly-
It's a different,
I under-
but it's
yeah.
different from the meter
That's
basis
It would be
now.
far more complicated to just calculate, okay, here's how much money we want to raise from getting the meter rate, and then let's
It's not
make,
complicated at all. There's a
Well, you know,
spreadsheet that,
that's true,
Ian's got a spreadsheet that does it.
and then you proportionally just make
Just
it, but
proportionally does it. I mean, it's
I
probably
personally
going to be
think
because of the
this is-
numbers, it's going to be $33 or
yeah,
$32
I think this
to
is the simplest way of
$31, but it's-
handling this one-time problem and not perseverating on it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Mark. It's not, I'm curious how it would look, because we have 15 users that have bigger meters, that theirs would go up probably $45, and everyone else would go down a bit, or something like that. But I do wonder if we just calculated it that way, if those would go up much higher, just because of the, how few there are. But I don't know, we'd have to look at the,
I guess what I would want from the select board is to know what dollar changes you're looking for each of the different sizes. Because right now, I just have it set as a $35 increase for each of the different ones. But I could certainly tweak it where, the larger users go up to $50, a $50 change, and the smaller users go up $20.
Ian, the numbers we have are that the retained earnings will give us about $173,000 to move into the operation budget, right?
Yep.
And the water department salary reduction or adjustment gives us 50.
Yep.
So that's 225,000. So whatever the difference is between what we need and that 225, in my opinion, is what we bring out of water meter.
So the 177,000.
Wh- Whatever,
Right,
whatever that is.
That's clear. Mhm.
Okay, so you said, how much does the select board want to raise? That's the number. And then that just goes into the spreadsheet and it calculates what each person's meter charge is.
No, he was simply saying, if we're not gonna do a blanket communistic $35 to everybody, then he wants to know, Mark, according to your idea, how much you want each of these to go up. Like $50, $45,
I've got the
$30.
spreadsheet. I can put it on the spreadsheet. Andrew, the question is, what do you have to do for meter rates to raise 100 and whatever Andrew said, or Ian said the number was? Right?
I personally understand the rationale for that. Many ideas that we've talked about tonight have good rationale, but I think that personally, I think simplicity is beneficial.
yeah, I was talking myself into it, but I think it is still proportional. I think the bigger meters are paying more. So I think if we add 35 for 1 quarter each is extremely.
And Josh, I just want to give you the rationale behind the other step, is that the people with the bigger meters, or the accounts with the bigger meters, they're generally not people, but use more water. And therefore, they would have, had we had the proper rate, paid a proportional amount more of this difference. I'm not even going to call it a shortfall, because it's not, it's a difference. And that would be the reason why, instead of $35, maybe they should be charged $45 and everybody else should be charged $30 or whatever the number. That's what my reasoning would be behind. And it is so straightforward to do. I mean, he's got a spreadsheet. All he's got to do is put in the number we got to raise, and it pops up what each meter gets charged. So it's not like, we've got and if you want to, I can do it before the next 2 minutes are up. I mean, we don't have to spend, we're not investing hundreds of hours of labor for somebody to calculate each meter. It's
Yeah,
there.
If we could do it, I'm fine with it. I see another Excel work.
But that's, I know, but that's the rationale. The rationale is the bigger meter people use more of the water and therefore should be paying more of the shortfall. That's all.
All right. Ian, is that something that, you don't have to do that on the spot right now, but something you can do?
Yes.
Okay,
that
if
is
we
something I
make a
can do.
motion for you all to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to understand it 1 second, Ian, are
Yep.
you basically planning to proportionally just get the X, that's how much money you need, and then proportionally, based on the current existing rates? Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yes, that's essentially what it does.
$53.
If you're
Okay.
paying 0.01% of the rates, you'll pay 1.01% of that difference.
So then 400,000 is the target number, right?
Yes.
We're getting to, okay. All right.
So you know what to do? You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could suggest,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
maybe letting them have some time not in the hot seat, and then
Yeah.
maybe deal with the one-day liquor licenses, because I think we have
Do
someone
we
waiting.
need to make this decision tonight, Lynn, no?
Well, I think that there is an issue with actually sending out bills, right? That if we don't make a decision tonight, that folks will get a shorter amount of time with their bill.
We could probably wait to the next meeting. It will just
Okay.
make the bill a week late,
or
but
could we
they'd
just
still be
give-
due before the end of the fiscal year.
Could
I
we
mean,
give a directive,
well,
basically, and they
yeah.
can calculate it?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was
That's
thinking.
what we should do.
So let's, here, I'll make a motion here.
Thank
and then
you.
We'll figure, as the same group that took 4 meetings last year to do water rates, like.
This is a miracle.
I think, I'm going to make a motion here. I move that I move that we liquidate $173,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund, that we reduce the water operating budget, specifically the Water Division salary line, by $50,000, and we increase the water meter rate proportionally to make up the difference between what,
To get to
to make it,
$400,000.
yeah, to make up the difference to meet $400,000.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just real quick, because I know we're gonna talk more about this in the future, but I'm just trying to figure out where we fall in line with that meter rate at $35 compared to other towns in the area.
Question for
It's
another.
it's really a 1/4 though.
Yeah, sure.
Well, but
Good point.
But we're
Beneath,
below.
this is for
Yeah, whatever it
the
is.
billing period for April, right? That's the only.
The first
thing-
quarter of this, I mean, the
No,
third
it's
quarter
the-
of this year,
No, it's the
January to March. The
third quarter of the
Right.
fiscal year water use.
Yeah.
But it's the last billing period in this fiscal year.
Sorry, Len, go ahead.
Lisa, will you just clarify what billing cycles they're making adjustments for?
I would say you could vote to just make it for this billing that's coming out in May, so it's your January, February, March usage. And then I'm assuming when we see tie and bond and stuff, we're gonna be making a decision to
Right.
whatever we want to bill through June.
That's good, because that would be a relatively lower bill anyway.
Yes, yes, yeah, right. Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
All right, anything else, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, great.
Need to do the sewer
Okay.
also.
Oh, that's true.
Yep. All right, so any thoughts
Do the same
about
thing for sewer that we just did for water.
Sorry, I just lost my place here. Okay, so for the sewer enterprise fund, reduce it down to 100,000. So we're using 70-ish thousand, and then,
Well,
no,
so can I just speak?
yeah.
So I think the difference between the water and the sewer is that there's no $50,000 you can just drop out of the salary line, and there's no meter, obviously, rate
Yes,
that's
there is.
fixed.
There's a water,
There is.
there's a sewer
I'm sorry.
fixed rate.
The fixed rate, okay. So then you can do something very similar. Okay.
You can't, you're right, you don't have
The
the
unit rate.
$50,000 component.
This also should have a rate reserve.
So
Just the guy in the corner mentioning that.
But yeah, I agree. I think we should do the same thing. We can,
Yeah,
and then yeah, we're keeping, if we use $70,000 of the sewer enterprise fund, that gets us about 103, and then use our fixed sewer rate to make up the difference, which is
Is this basically what he
$60,000.
recommended?
No, that was increasing
No, because that
the
would be
unit.
rate.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the fixed sewer rate.
okay.
So I'll
Anything else?
move that we use $70,000 of the sewer enterprise fund retained earnings, I'll liquidate that portion of the earnings, and for the 60,000, oh, I'm sorry, oh yeah, sorry, I was looking at option one. And then for the remaining $60,000, use a proportional increase on the sewer fixed rate. Did you get that, Mike?
Sort of, but if you want to repeat it, that'd be.
To reach 130,000.
Yes. So liquidate $70,000 of the sewer enterprise fund retained earnings and for the remaining $60,000, have a proportional increase on the fixed sewer meter rate.
And that's about $12 per house, which is probably reasonable, Josh.
I second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, great. All right,
Can't leave now, Lisa.
Sorry?
You can't leave now. It's good.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we've got our road paving memo. So this memo was put together by Ian. So Ian, I can turn it over to you to discuss this.
So, as part of our capital planning discussions, we had discussed using part of the capital plan to bond roads. So at this fall special town meeting, the town voted to approve a borrowing authorization of $5.19 million to pay for the cost of several of these projects. This is a culmination of, back in 2023, Beta Engineering gave a presentation on the pavement management plan to show the overall state of the Long Meadow roads and what different levels of funding would do to improve road health. What came of this presentation was a review where the town was and a plan to move forward. Annually, we fund about $480,000 a year of Chapter 90 and additional capital improvement funds, which range from $340,000 to $740,000 a year. Now, unfortunately, this does not meet where we need to be in terms of funding for completing these road projects. To make headway on this backlog of work, the DPW and the Select Board developed a plan which was voted on that fall special town meeting to address the following roads: Shaker, Emerson, Cooley Drive, Twin Hills, Long Meadow Street, which is Bliss to Wheel Meadow, Bel Air, Canterbury, Grassy Gutter, and Pondside, and other streets as funding permits. I had our financial advisor run two scenarios which are attached within the memo, one at $5.195 million with a 15-year term, and one at $4,787,909 with a 15-year term. 15 years is the longest term that you are able to bond for a road resurfacing project. I also spoke with our financial advisor about running 10-year projections, and she will provide me that at another point. Initially, when we had discussed, when I had discussed this with our financial advisor, the 10-year she recommended would be too aggressive of a payback term, so I looked at a 15-year for the presentation today. In the fall of '24, when we originally discussed this project, I reviewed estimates which showed an annual debt service of $350,000, which is what we based our capital project funding on. Ultimately, the estimates that I shared with the board did not show $350,000 as a total debt service, but that was the principal. So with this in mind, I reached back out to our financial advisor and structured the payments in such a way that the first payment when we went out for bonding would be $350,000 to meet our capital request. The results of those two bonds is presented below. In the first year of bonding, once we were to use all the proceeds and we needed to repay it, the fiscal total for FY26, if we were to expend in FY25, would be $343,500 if we took out the full $5.1 million, and if we went with the reduced $4.7 million, the total principal and interest would be $345,485.82. Now, as you can see, this would require subsequent payments to be much larger, and if we were to continue to fund this out of capital, this would mean that we would have less funds available going forward for other projects. If the Select Board wanted to pursue the original borrowing, the FY26 debt service would be $531,000 and $490,000 for a $5.1 million and $4,787,000 note respectively. So with a restructuring of the payment, that allows us to now be able to afford this bond proposal. One of the options presented above, as you can see, is the 5.1 million. A question might be asked, if we were awarded a contract at the reduced amount, why would we borrow for the full 5.1 million? The two things that come to mind are contingencies and additional road work. The pending award does not take into account any change orders or delays. Having contingency built into the project prevents additional borrowings or supplemental free cash required to cover this shortfall. And if the project was able to be completed within budget and on time, a rarity, I know, but the town would have additional funds for road resurfacing projects, which the DPW would provide options to the select board on how to proceed with this. The idea initially presented was to piggyback Chapter 90 funds with these additional funds to tackle lower priority projects that were not addressed in the initial borrowing. For the town to go forward with this borrowing, we would need the directive of the select board to proceed with one of the following options. Once given, I'll work with our financial advisor to review other upcoming borrowings and begin the process with bond counsel to prepare a bond sale.
Great, yeah, thank you, and thank you for looking into this after our last meeting, and you know, although when we originally talked about this, I thought we would be putting more each year towards this, and have a shorter bond term. You know, I think that you've done a good job explaining why, you know, it makes the most sense to do a 15-year term. And really, it looks like, from my vantage point, that we're just deciding between these two options of either doing a 15-year bond term for 4.7 million or 5.1 million. And again, I think in my time on the select board, we have seen what can happen with construction projects, and you gave examples of change orders and delays, and I think it makes sense to have that cushion of 5.1 million. And you know, like you outlined in your memo, if everything goes perfectly, then, you know, we would have, you know, funds to actually pay more roads at the end. So based off of, you know, your memo and what you explained, and having time to think about this further from our last meeting, you know, I'd be in favor of doing the 15-year term for the $5.1 million bond. Anyone else? Josh?
So I think I generally agree with that. My only tweak would be, I think we should pay more this year to try to even out through the rest of the term. Because I think we have a little bit to play with from our capital plan this year. We have the interest, and which, if you look at the warrant, I think we had 400-something thousand towards the police department. And I spoke with Lynn today, and she said that there may be a delay on that work anyway. We have to do a study on what is going to be done. So it may not cost all that. It may not all get done this year. So I would suggest we up our payment this year, take that from the police project, which will still get us around the 300,000 that the permanent building committee recommended, and even us out through the rest of the term, and not hamstring us on capital projects going forward.
Okay, sorry, so just to clarify, putting the $400,000 from interest towards...
Not all, no,
okay.
100,000, whatever
Okay.
it would take to even us out on subsequent payments.
And then leaving the 300,000 for the police?
Right.
Okay, got it, thank you. Anyone else? Mark?
I mean, it's a classic case of, you know, we think we're spending $350,000 a year, but we're obligating the town to $440,000 10, 12 years down the road. I don't think we can do that. I don't know where the money's going to come from, and it's nice to say, well, we're just going to make this a general obligation bond, but I think we said we're going to pay for this out of our capital expenditure. I mean, I could see us saying we're going to take $350,000 and escalate that at 2.5% a year, because that's what we expect our, you know, tax revenue to go up at, and our, you know, that share of it. But to go with this repayment schedule, I don't know how you can, how we're going to afford that, and how we can commit future select boards in the town to that money.
Andrew?
I may not feel quite as strongly as Mark on it, but I think if I were to have to make a choice, I think on balance, I'd probably be a little bit more inclined to do the 4.7 million, only because it's significantly, I mean, obviously, we all know that there'll be good uses for the money on the roads, like, that'll be helpful, but at the same time, it's 15 years of $100,000 that we are gonna have to, like, that's gonna hurt our other capital projects that might come up, essentially. I don't feel, I mean, when Vineeth was saying we should do the higher one, I was starting to think, oh, you know, maybe, yeah, we'll spend it on the roads, but at the same time, you know, we don't know we're definitely hamstringing people in the future by locking ourselves into this for 15 years. And we know that, you know, based on we made a commitment to the town to do these roads. The bid is this amount, so we should be able to accomplish what we committed to.
Vineeth, I'd like to ask Lynn a question. What have we heard anything more from the state about this Chapter 90 bump that they said that we were going to go from $470,000 up to like 800 and something thousand? Do we believe that to happen, or is it going to happen this year?
It's in the governor's transportation bill. It remains to be seen whether it stays that way or not.
I mean, because that's potentially an additional $400,000 of road money that we have to spend. You can't use it for bonding, but we can certainly use it for roads. And, you know, we talked about 5.1 million, 4.7 million, you know, $400,000 makes a dent on that difference if it comes.
Yeah, Josh?
$400,000 is, what, half a mile? It doesn't really get us all that much, which is why we're taking this big swing. The reason I think we should go higher, I don't know if anyone's watched the news, everything is incredibly uncertain. I don't know what the turmoil is going to do on our road prices. I just, who knows? And I think if we can build in, I don't even know if we're building in enough uncertainty, but I think we should, because I don't want us not only being obligated on this, but going back to the town and saying we're $500,000 short on this project because of rising costs. And if we can build in a little bit of a cushion, I think that's what we should do.
Didn't Lynn just report that we got a firm bid on this?
Yeah, but I just, that may not be how it works
You know,
out.
there's no guarantees at all, but I mean, when we come up with 4.7 million, it's not based on a pie in the sky number, it was based on a bid. I hear you, Josh, and I understand what you're saying, but I'm equally concerned about the uncertainty of committing the town to a $400,000 bond obligation 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, to Mark's point, I mean, that's something that we, you know, hindsight's 2020, but we should have addressed this years ago, and now here we are, like many other projects, we're in this seat, and we have all of these issues with water, sewer, with our roads, and we made an obligation to actually make positive change and try to fix some of the previous mistakes over the past decades. So I don't want to be spending millions of dollars on roads, but we have to. Our roads are in disrepair, and we did a very poor job over the past several decades of addressing our roads, and now here we are. And to Josh's point, these excess funds would be very helpful with road projects. We understand there's going to be other capital projects that we have to address, but I wish we had $10 million to spend on our roads. We don't, but again, this is a Band-Aid, a large Band-Aid that we're addressing on previous years of neglect to our roads, and here we are. So I think we have to spend the larger amount. I'm glad that we decided to bring this forward several months ago, and we've actually been able to save the town some money in terms of getting a better number that we're going to be leveraging. So I think even though we're very reactive from years of neglect, I think we need to dedicate these funds to making a positive difference when it comes to our roads now and in the future. So I support the larger number. And I also support Josh's point, is so long as Ian, if we're paying more upfront in the first year as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Ian said in his memo, if there are change orders and delays that balloons the cost of this project, I would hate to have to go back to the town and say, we need additional money to complete this $4.7 million project that we already borrowed for. I think it's just better to do it at once, so we don't have to go back to the town and ask for additional funds.
Ian, is it possible that if we use a significant amount of that interest from the Operational Stabilization Fund, that we could actually get the annual amount closer to the 350 that we anticipated? If just ballparking it, if you're like,
I don't see why not. I mean, I can certainly, what I can do is I can go back to Brianne and say, here's what we are looking to do for initial outlay. What would that look like for our subsequent bond, or our subsequent debt service payments, and see where it shakes up. So if I had an idea that we were gonna put $100,000 extra towards the bond payment in the first year, see how that flows through the rest of the period.
I
I
mean, that might be a
don't know
nice goal.
offhand, but.
I'm actually thinking, gosh, interest rates might be going down in the near future, and you never can control these things. We're going to get it for the time what we're going to get. But like if we find out that right now this is going to be a higher interest rate than we're going to see in the future years, it would be nice to have made a bit decent down payment and then not hamstring future select board as much as possible.
So are you comfortable with the 100,000, or are you saying that we should be using more than 100,000 from the interest?
I was actually wondering if he could calculate what it would take. My first question was even enough to be possible, but it all depends on what we want to use that interest for. The police department was one thing, but maybe if it's not going to happen this year, this is an excellent use for it. It actually is related to the whole point of what we were saying with capital projects as well, essentially. I mean, kind of roads.
The police department project will get more expensive. That is,
But can we do it now?
well, we can, was it this, I think we can do it this fiscal year, was the idea. Just, it would be, or do we have to do the study and then it may not happen until next year at all?
Right.
Okay.
And we'll have the interest for it then, next year's interest potentially.
Okay, so this.
But the amount is, we can choose or arbitrary. At this point, it's really which number we're going for.
Well, so if interest rates go down, then our future theoretical income from the operational stabilization
Hits both
interest
ways.
goes down, yeah.
Yeah.
Full of good news today.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, I do think that talking about the police department building or other uses for that fund is obviously going to inform this decision. If we cannot do that project until next year anyways, then I would be more inclined to use more of the operating stabilization fund interest to put down towards the down payment.
And do we need money for the study for the police department?
No, that was a capital item in FY '25.
Okay.
Ian, do you need a directive from us entirely right now, or is it enough to tell you we want to go for the 5.1 and then the actual terms of the bond and how much we take, you can come back to us?
I can do that. Yeah, that's fine.
So just to clarify, though, the budget for '26 is based on the $350,000 in capital for the debt service on the road borrowing.
Additionally, within the articles, we have a article for use of the stabilization fund for the police project, so we would have to modify that as well.
To your point, Lynn, we're good because based on just Ian's proposal right here, it's under the 350. So if we were to vote for the 5.1, that's okay, right? Because it's under the 350. Ian's point about that article, that's true. That might have to get amended. But I think it sounds like if the police department can go forward this year, then we'll use the money for that and maybe not be able to take our annual outlay for this down to 350. We'll just use as much money as left. But if it's not going to happen, then maybe that article needs to change anyway.
Yes to all of that, but I would just add, you can change however you want the bonding scheduled to be with Ian's input. You just have to know that you have to figure out where the rest of that funding source is coming from. Meaning, you can use that interest from the operating stabilization fund to help lower to help spread it out more evenly if you want, but just recognize that there's other actions that you have to take in order to do that, because the budget is balanced
Right.
with it like this.
The other question is, I think because some of us going to be here, what are we going to do for $493,000 next year? Because it's not 350, it's going to be 493. That's very close, that's in spitting distance of 500,000. All of a sudden, that puts a really big hurt on our capital, counts.
Well, that's why I would like to raise our payment this year to get that down.
And that's fine, Josh, but that means we need a different we need to look at a different schedule.
Right.
I mean, we made a commitment that this would come out of the capital budget, basically, that we thought it was going to be 350 every year or barely, so I think that this is definitely worth discussing.
Yes.
The police department, sounds like a lot is riding on that. Because if the police department proposal goes forward, then you have an article already set up, and you could use the money for that, then whatever's left over, if there is any, can go towards a down payment, and then we have to be comfortable with basically taking more out of future capital budgets to pay for this debt service, essentially, in principle. Alternatively, if you actually believe that the police department isn't going to happen this year, or only part of it or something, then we have more money to do and use this, and it's clearly going to be benefit in the future if we can make the biggest down payment as possible.
Yes,
So-
I'm comfortable with that. We also have a lot more going into OPEB than we originally thought. That's an avenue for you if you wanted to move some money around too. It's still below your policy, but it is more than we thought we were going to be able to do.
Yeah, I'm in the same place as you, Andrew.
I mean, ultimately, Ian, let's say Josh's scenario works. Instead of borrowing 5.195 million, we borrow $5 million, because the best use of the capital is to not borrow it, and not just use it as a payment. Just don't borrow that, right?
That's actually correct, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a great
that
point.
makes sense, right?
Sorry, say that again, Mark?
So, I mean, if we're going to use more money from our capital fund for road paving, we borrow less and put that directly, I mean, it makes sense. Why borrow $100,000 at 3.5% when we can just spend that $100,000 and never borrow that much money?
So put another way, if we had the $400,000 from the interest from the operational stabilization fund, instead of borrowing 5.1 million, we'll just borrow 4.7 million, and that'd be very
And
beneficial.
still spend 5.1 million.
And still, the project still gets 5.1 million.
But the beauty of that, Andrew, is if you don't have any upsets, you've only borrowed $4.7 million dollars, and now you still got
Plenty of extra money.
the extra money, which you didn't necessarily move into the fund for roads, but was available for funds for roads, because we held it in that capital fund unspent. So Josh, that's a way of kind of hedging our bets both ways.
Yeah.
Borrow the lower amount, but know that we've got additional money if we need it, and it's the best use of that additional money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So can we get more clarity on the police station thing for next meeting?
We don't have time. You
Okay.
have to close your warrant tonight. But in terms of the police station, so the original request came in a year and a half ago for the FY25 capital plan. It, at that time, estimated $300,000 in repairs. We could not get all of that into the FY25 capital budget, and knowing that we would need design and plans first before they moved ahead with actual construction, money was put in for development of those designs, so it was $30,000 for FY '25. DPW has not moved on that yet. They haven't had capacity within the department to actually take that project on yet. So that's why I was saying I felt comfortable taking, you know, what we had projected for operating stabilization interest from that earmarked project to use towards this, because in all actuality, we're probably at least a year out from DPW moving forward on construction there.
So I'm just looking at the article for the police station. It's decorative repairs and then repairs to the roof system. Is the roof?
Right.
And that's obviously more serious. Is that's also delayed, and is that urgent? Is that going to be something that, are we leaking? Are we worried about that?
It's not leaking. It definitely needs to be addressed.
What
I wouldn't
article
say
number
it's
is this, by
urgent.
the way?
12.
Thank you.
It's growing urgent, but it's not urgent yet.
Lynn, if we were to use the money from Article 12 for roads, where's the money going to come from next year to do the police department?
It'll be a capital request again.
But there's no guarantee that other than us liking the project, because it almost didn't get funded this year other than the interest from the
Right.
stabilization fund, right?
It all depends on the priorities in the plan and what we absolutely have to fund.
Right, so
What is urgent.
essentially, it's being put back into the pool of capital projects. That may or hopefully will be, but no guarantee on being funded.
But if the project isn't happening this year, and by doing.
You're right, John. I mean, it's
Oh, no,
stupid
no.
to put money aside if it's
Oh,
not
no,
going
but
to.
I'm saying we're freeing up, by making a bigger payment this year, or borrowing less, we're freeing
Yes.
up more money
That's
down the
true.
road for capital.
For stuff like
plans,
this.
so.
DPW does have operating funds in their standard budget for repairs, for maintenance. It's not like nothing's going to happen there. It's just that it's not going to be a large project. They're not going to rip a hole in the roof to try to repair something that they don't have funding to deal with if it's a bigger problem.
I mean, if we can get to a point where the debt service and principal pay down on this loan for 15 years is $100,000 less that we could use for other things, like, I think that's the immediate benefit right now. Maybe we can repair the police station, keep it going, and then next year we have the same interest, maybe not as high, but, you know, it gets back in there and we know it's a high priority project.
The problem, Andrew, is if you look at the schedule that the bond council has put together, you know, we've got annual payments of $335, give or take, thousand, going up to $370,000. So it's the principal that's, forget about the interest. We're just
Yeah.
going to repay $5.1 million, $5 million over 15 years. That comes up to $350,000 a year.
I guess what I'm at,
Plus interest.
just to be, yeah, I mean, I guess from what I'm hearing, it seems, I'm not wedded to any of this, obviously, it's whatever we collectively decide, but I see the benefits in making a huge down payment, as big a one as possible, so that we can reduce the amount of money spent on this, the principal and income and interest every year going forward.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion, obviously, so.
Okay. So it seems like now we're leaning towards the $4.7 million bond over the 15-year term. And then do we also, so we can provide that directive, we also need to probably provide some directive too about the interest?
I think that would be on the warrant. Yeah.
Okay.
Could the interest in the warrant be put into, like, capital project and been used for the police if possible, or do we have to specify it has to be, like tonight, I know it's necessary to do the warrant, but can we move it to a place where there's flexibility?
Put it in the
What?
capital stabilization, capital fund.
Yeah, you could do that. But to use it out of that,
town meeting,
Yeah.
do it in the fall.
And then we can decide whether to put it towards roads or,
Like, the reality is,
Yeah.
like, this project can get done. There might be overages like we discussed, and then how many years from now, we'll have to pay for it. I mean, this $400,000 from the interest on the operational stabilization fund will theoretically be in there, because we didn't spend it. And if we find out that the police station can be done, we could do that with it, It seems to give us the most flexibility.
okay. So let's maybe tackle that when we're talking about our warrant. And right now, we can, so I'll make a motion to direct the finance director to proceed with the 4.7, or $4,787,909 bond over a 15-year term.
Second.
Any further discussion?
My only point, I know we're talking about the 5.1 number to the 4.7. My only concern is that we're not going to focus on these road projects and the needs of the roads outside of the money at 4.7 that we're going to put towards them. So, because I just want to, every year is different. You have new select board members, and just right now, I just feel like we should. I know there's a cost involved, but there's also a cost of not doing anything and not going bigger. And I see there'd be a cost savings, but other projects are going to come up, and the purpose of this was really for our roads. So I just want to. I mean, the select board's going to change over time, and I just want to make sure that we have the commitment to the roads, because we have so much catching up to do from the lack of the previous years. So
Yeah, and
that's just my only concern, really.
I mean, I think the idea behind this was that this was supplemental, that we would always have, Chapter 90 funds every year to put towards roads, but this was kind of like a bigger borrowing that we put, to just be able to tackle more roads in a given year. So I think every year we will still be paving roads, but this is just a bigger project kind of on top of that.
I also think that there's no way we're not going to end up getting this project done, and if there's contingencies, we're going to pay for those. Like, we're going to get the money to do that. So I don't think, like, there's a bid for 4.7. If there's some changes, we're paying for it. It's getting done, which I think was one of the main arguments for, like, going higher. So I'm confident this is going to get done no matter who's sitting in this seat.
Famous last words.
In our seats.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? All right, all those opposed? All right. Let's move on to, I believe, the annual town meeting warrant is next, and we have our Madam Moderator joining us. And thank you for being here tonight, and for joining us always before these town meetings to kind of talk about what's ahead and some of the issues maybe that are coming up. So I'll give the floor over to you to make any kind of remarks that you'd like.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. As you had mentioned earlier at the top of the meeting, town meeting is on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, 7 p.m., Long Meadow High School. Always the second Tuesday in May for the annual town meeting. And this particular year, in addition to next year, is pretty special because this year is the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. February 9th of 1775, British Parliament voted that Massachusetts Bay was in rebellion. And of course, in April, there's the anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The role that town meeting played in sparking the revolution is one that is a truly historic one, very important one, and one that moderators throughout the Commonwealth are celebrating. And I will be celebrating this as possible. In addition, the principles that we fought the revolution for are more pertinent than ever. And so it's important that we commemorate what those principles are, what town meetings and valiant citizens fought for. So I'll be offering a statement at town meeting. The Historical Society will also have a table outside town meeting. We are encouraging folks to participate in commemoration. There's a small group so far of organizing for broader efforts for Longmeadow to commemorate the American Revolution. And so I obviously invite your partnership in that. So that's, first of all, the commemoration event. You see before me a different book than I usually bring. This is Town Meeting Time, 4th edition. It has been updated with all of the laws that have changed since the 3rd edition was published. It's a much improved version. There is also an online version available for anyone to purchase as well. But we will be using the newest town meeting time as per our bylaw requirement for that. Finally, second to last, the warrant has 38 articles. I believe that'll be the same when you go through it. 5 of them are, of course, citizen petition articles. Note that 1 is on commercial vehicle parking, 2 are on noise, and 2 are on solar panels. I want to just remind folks that we vote on motions, not on articles. So if you see an article in anywhere, there's a reminder that there will be someone making a specific motion on an article. So there's a citizen petition article that is rather vague. And so we will be voting on whatever motion that citizen petitioner makes at town meeting. And I'm, of course, going to recommend a consent agenda, and looking forward to working with you all on that.
We like those.
They do speed things up. And then finally, for new participants in town meeting, there will be a Town Meeting 101 session on April 15th at 6 p.m. at Storrs Library. So you're welcome to sign up for that. I encourage anybody to come to that. I've also produced an infographic that Lynn is going to have cause to put on the town website. I'm happy to talk with you about any other items related to town meeting. I do encourage everyone to come. Children are, of course, welcome, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions from the board, any comments? Well, there are a number of citizen petitions in this town, on this town warrant. I know in the past we have placed some citizen petitions higher that seems to have greater interest. I don't know if you have any thoughts about the placement of those citizen petitions articles on this particular town warrant or not.
I do know that the issue of commercial vehicle parking has been one that the board has been trying to wrestle with for many years. And it is a contentious issue. So it's likely to draw a great deal of insight from participants at town meeting. If there's the possibility of moving that to an earlier place, great, because it would allow for those people who, do have that keen interest in that issue to move forward. But I, of course, defer to the select board, and when, if it's not possible to move that forward, citizens always do have the right to propose changing the order, and they would do so with a 2/3 vote.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that that is also what I have seen so far, too, is that there is a lot of interest in that citizen petition. Yeah, thank you. Josh?
Is there anything different for the new edition town meeting time you think we'll notice in the meeting? Anything we should keep an eye out for?
Probably not.
It's a long book, I was wondering.
There's a really handy chart at the very end of the book that identifies what's new compared to the other one. The old one didn't have anything on consent agendas, for example. I should note that I played a role in this, so I did review some of the chapters, and there are some footnotes that are regarding Longmeadow's town meeting that, you know, that's unique to us, so.
Great. Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, so the draft warrant we have shows Article 34, citizen petition, says commercial vehicle parking, that's all it says. And the copy that we got of the petition, pardon me for saying this, is pretty sparse. Because all it says is remove and replace the bylaws, you know, around commercial vehicle. How do we move from that, excuse me, how do you move from that to a motion? And how do people in town know in advance what the motion's going to be? If this is all that we, I mean, is the petitioner get to submit the motion to go into the warrant? Or is, my sense was the motion or the warrant comes off of the petition. So how do you deal with that? How do we deal with that? How's the town deal with it?
Sure. Well, first, keep in mind that the purpose of the warrant is to warn voters about the subjects upon which they will be deliberating and voting. It's not required to have everything spelled out completely. So there's some wiggle room there. Now, between not having everything spelled out completely and being overly vague, there's a big chasm there. I will be speaking with the citizen petitioner again to ask that a motion be prepared in advance so that it gets to be placed on the town's warrant, the motion sheet. And so that, and I'm not sure when that will be published this year, but it's in advance of the meeting itself. And so having that motion crafted and placed on the motion sheet with all of the select board's motions will allow voters to see that at the very least.
Where do they see the motion sheet?
It is sometimes handed out at town meeting, is it not?
No.
It has never been handed out?
Oh.
It's never been published on the town website?
I believe it has been published, but
Yeah.
The motion, the warrant is, but
The
not the
motion
motions.
sheet had been published on the town's website, to my knowledge.
maybe once or twice, but not
Okay.
every year, yeah.
Okay.
We should do it this year. Yeah.
It's a big year.
And, you know,
I mean, you know, my concern, Rebecca, obviously,
Yeah.
is the select board, the town manager, the town administrator, we've struggled over this whole issue of, and it seems to me very strange that some petitioner's gonna figure it out, and I hope they do, but figure it out to the, you know, ability of Secretary of State or anybody else to accept what they figure out, because we certainly haven't been able to, and we've had town council helping us.
I misspoke. The motions have never been posted. It's been the consent agendas that have been posted prior, so that people are aware as to where they'd be.
thank you.
falling.
Yeah, thank you. The select board has at times crafted motions that are different than what the warrant says. So the practice of having a motion shared on the fly is not new. I think that the challenge is the subject is so broad in the article. And it's also not the select board doing this, it's a citizen petitioner doing this. It's my understanding that the citizen petitioner is working with the planning board in crafting something that they have reached out to the select board as well. Correct me if I'm mistaken on that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So it's not as if this person is doing this all on his own. And it's also his right.
I'm fine. I'm not saying it's not, and I'm just
Yep.
hate to go through a lot of motions to find, or a lot of activity and consternation to find out that, you know, what comes up isn't, you know, doesn't pass muster with whoever it needs to pass muster with down the road. That's, I guess, always a risk of a citizen's petition.
Yep.
Anything else? Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. I think, you know, everyone probably feels the same way, but I feel like we have the best moderator in Massachusetts, and you do a phenomenal job, and like, we're all at different events, and people are complimenting you for what you do and how you handle yourself. You're really a role model for other moderators across the Commonwealth, so.
Well, I don't know about
Thank
that,
you.
but I do appreciate
But
the
really,
compliment.
you do a great job.
Thank you, and I it's a real honor to be in this role for voters in Long Meadow. It's a wonderful community. I'm glad to be part of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well said, Dan. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will now get started on talking about the warrant. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. So I think the best way to go about this is, hopefully you all have had a chance to take a look at the warrant and flag anything that you think needs to be discussed or changed. We can just kind of go through article by article, and I can just pause for a second just to see if anyone has anything to edit or comment on, and then we can go through it that way. Josh, did you have something?
I'll move we place Article 1 on the warrant.
Perfect.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right.
I'll move we place Article 2 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Sorry, can I just tell you one thing? Just to be clear, we're still working on some of the explanations, and so what you're seeing here tonight is still a draft, and it may change, but the fundamentals of the article will not. But, for
The
example.
explanations may change or the
Yes,
articles?
the explanations.
Okay, great,
So
thank
we
you.
can still vote on accepting them?
Oh, we need you to.
Okay.
I just wanted to be clear that, I just wanted to be clear that what you're voting now, we're going to spend the next 2 days honing this
Perfecting.
into everything we think it needs to be before it goes to the printer on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, and actually, technically, the descriptions under the warrant articles can be changed up to 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
Okay.
I just learned
Is that just for printing purposes?
It's for printing purposes that we try to get it as
Yeah.
concrete as possible, but actually the bylaw says 2 weeks prior to the meeting, we shall provide residents with descriptions of each warrant article. So actually, technically, just to be,
Don't get tempted.
well, just because some things do change, new information comes about, and if it provides public education to people on the warrant, it's, in my opinion, okay.
Okay.
I'll move we place Article 3 on the warrant.
Did we do 2 already?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And do we know that Article 3 number isn't going to change?
Right, correct.
That's correct.
Like if it snows tonight.
Right, that's the problem, is
We do not have any precipitation forecasted that
that's fine,
will
that's fine. I've just been
lead
here
us
where
to
the
believe
numbers
that.
had to change. That's, okay, that's fine.
I didn't take the gas out of my snow blower yet.
Okay, so we got a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right. I move that we.
Yeah, you're right, we didn't vote on 2.
That's what I thought.
We made, it was motion
Oh, we
made.
didn't
seconded.
I was worried about that. I didn't want to have to come and have another extra Zoom meeting for number 2.
Okay.
I don't remember raising my hand for number 2. That's all I remember.
Okay, so we had a second, and,
Yeah, I second it.
okay,
Yep.
all right. So can we go back to that and vote on that?
I'll move we accept Article 2 onto the warrant.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Okay, so we've done the first 3, now.
I'll move we place Article 4 on the warrant.
Second. Any further?
I have a question on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lynn, just to make sure we're clear, so it's $150,000 to get the pool up to date, but there's $125,000 for other stuff, but I'm assuming that can be done while in operation? Is that kind of the implication?
Yeah, they're going to phase it in. We just don't
Okay.
have enough funding to do it all. And so
Okay.
they're going to phase what's absolutely critical to get
Yes.
the pool back up and running.
That's perfect, thanks.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
I'll move we place Article 5 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in
Can I
favor?
just
Yeah.
add-
Yep.
Lynn, what do you mean, or what does this mean by available funds in the treasury? Is that free cash?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great.
I'll move we place Article 6 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I'll move we place Article 7 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to go through this for a second.
Okay.
Transfer funds to the operating stabilization fund?
Yeah, so
Why
I
are
can
we doing
explain
that?
this if you want.
Yeah, why are we doing that?
So in the fall, when we had the mold issues at a couple buildings, we took money from the operating stabilization fund at fall town meeting to pay for the remediation with the commitment that we would replenish the operating stabilization fund with free cash.
This is the operating stabilization fund that's controlled by the finance committee.
No.
This is your fund. So this
That's
is
the
not
reserve fund.
not your fund, but it falls under your policy,
General
which is
reserves.
in excess of
Okay.
what the policy limits are.
Okay.
But I'm bringing this here to you because we did make the commitment when you voted on it that this is what you were going to do. You could decide you don't want to do that because the fund is over the threshold that the policy says, or we could make a good faith attempt at giving back what is available from free cash after these other uses have claimed the rest of the free cash.
I mean, putting money back into the operating stabilization fund, just so we can take it out for something else because it's got more than 7.5% in there, seems.
Well, it presumably gets a higher interest rate, right, Ian? I'm sure that's probably true.
Money's fungible, we don't invest in
If I remember
Yeah, I'm
correctly,
just
we
thinking
had a big
reasons to
fight
do it.
about taking this money out in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is,
And, yeah,
Fine.
and
Could
since
we-
we did say we would take it, I
Fine.
mean, I agree with you, Mark, but it's a small amount. You know, if we were talking about putting back in 300,000, I think we'd be having a different conversation.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this one? Okay. Any further, yeah. I'm getting all messed up now. No, we had a second discussion. All those in favor? Okay, great. All right, moving on to Article 8.
I
move- oh, go
move we
ahead.
place Article 8 on the warrant.
Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, do we know that water enterprise and sewer enterprise funds are now accurate, given what we just talked about earlier tonight?
So this is the FY '26 budget, so this would reflect the expenses needed to fund the FY '26 budget. This
But
would,
it's the operating budget, so it wouldn't,
it's built based on what they're projecting for rates for '26, which will all likely change after you actually have a rate presentation and set rates.
right, so it'll all change. That's my point, okay.
But no, isn't this budget's set and our rates will change based on what our projected usage is? Is that right?
Yeah,
Mark's saying that back.
remember, expenses and revenue are two different systems.
Right.
Like I said, for water and sewer, we set, we set the expenses first, and then we match the revenue to those
Yeah,
expenses.
so we're setting our expenses now.
yes.
And that's based on a presumed amount of water we buy plus a presumed amount of cost of running the department
Yes, and,
and capital costs.
yes,
But it doesn't include expenses to put money back into the
correct.
stabilization fund.
Correct. And it does not include capital projects that have not yet come to you. Meaning, you're going to get a presentation in a few weeks that talks about needs and growing the enterprise fund.
So will we be adjusting these numbers based on those? Should we be adjusting these numbers based on them?
Potentially, but that's a conversation for, that would be a fall town meeting situation.
So if we're raising our rates commensurate with what our presentation is on what we should be doing, we could amend in the fall.
Correct.
That's what we did this current year, is we amended the budget in the fall.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on this one? Okay. All those in favor? All right, I move that we place Article 9 on the annual town warrant.
Second.
So this is the one where we may want to, do you want to ask for discussion?
Yeah, any further discussion?
Yeah. So this is where we may want to amend this road paving amount.
I
Unless-
thought, I
I
don't see
think
Article
that-
12 is where,
No, that's taking, that would be changing where the interest from the operation stabilization is going.
Well, so you're right, but
This is our
what
bond payment.
So the
Yeah.
way Ian has it set up now is it's going to be 350 is what he assumed we could have available to pay. So he kind of made it to make sure the first year was 350.
So, and
But
then we
if-
may pay more in the fall.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I got it right.
So
Wait, do
you-
I have it right now?
You can
No?
technically leave this article the way it
same?
is. We're going to amend that road paving line to say road paving debt service payment, or roads, so it's clear it's for debt service.
Okay.
But that 350 is what's coming out of capital. If you want to pay more out of a different funding source, that will be a different article.
Oh, right, yeah. If we want to do that now, but we had a discussion on that, right? So when we get there.
Okay. Anything else? on This one? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. I think that I would be in favor of moving the commercial vehicle citizen petition up, because I think that there has been a lot of interest in that one. And I think we've generally said that this is kind of the area where we kind of put higher interest articles. So I think putting that citizen petition article as Article 10 is something that I think would make sense and would speak to, the interest that the town seems to have in this article.
But for the purposes of going through this, Heath, maybe we can just stick with these numbers and then at the end, say we're gonna insert it and move them all down.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, we can do that.
For tracking-
Otherwise,
for
it's never
tracking. That's the whole
a good
reason why
idea.
the citizen petitions only list out citizen petition in the name, brief description, so that the formatting didn't get messed up if we had to move them around.
Okay.
Vinnie, the only thing I would say is, we generally try to keep things together, and I think Article 11 goes into, it relates to Article 9 because of the bond payment, I'm sorry,
They're all
the
capital.
chiller, yeah, it's all
Mhm.
capital.
Mhm.
And so I would just say maybe put it after that.
Yes, that makes sense. After
For 11?
maybe even 12.
Why, maybe 11 should probably be where 10 is. And then I think you could, so put 11 where 10 is, and then 11 could be the citizen petition, and then 10 could be 12, and then go on.
Yeah.
Got it?
I thought you were going to make it complicated, and then
Okay.
it was even
Sorry.
more.
So-
We knew you were following.
Yeah, flip 11 and 10, and so Article 11 becomes Article 10, and you said put the citizen petition where Article, would be the new Article 11. Is that right?
No.
No, 12 is 11.
Oh, okay, 12 also moves up, okay.
But we'll
And
do
then
this at the end.
11 is 13, and the citizen petition is 12.
Yep. So do all the capital,
Yep.
Yeah.
then the citizen petition.
Yep.
But rearranged at the end of this whole
Yes.
exercise.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. So just remember that till the end, Josh.
Yeah.
And then you want the
Micro-
stormwater after the
Yeah.
citizen petition?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, okay, okay.
So what did we?
So
vote on?
we need to approve Article 10.
I'll move that we put Article 10 on the warrant.
Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I see this, I read it, I understand it. Was this on a list somewhere that the
Yep.
DPW was doing?
Yeah, it was on the capital plan, and we could not fund it. There's not, stormwater only had enough to fund partial of it, and the rest is coming from the operating budget.
How long would it be?
But,
Go ahead.
but, so there's $200,000 in the operating budget to do this already?
Yes, we've been trying to
In
grow.
the, literally a budget line item for the DPW?
Not for Raspberry Brook, but for culvert repair and replacement,
Right,
yeah.
so we're gonna take half of it out of the operating budget and supplement that from this stormwater retained earning.
Yep.
And what does that do to the stormwater retained earnings fund? Pretty much just
Brings it
takes it down to
low,
the very,
yeah. Yep.
okay. Just, are we getting to the same place with stormwater
So two-
retained earnings that we are
We've
with?
already been there, because it's subsidized by the general fund, so
The
it's.
current stormwater balance is 655,904. With a 200,000 hit, we'd be at 455,904, so right above right below the policy of 500,000.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, all those in favor? Okay.
I'll move we place Article 11 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Move we place Article 12 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So, yeah, do we want to amend this completely to, I mean, moving to place it on the warrant didn't make sense, but do we want to change this to moving the Operation Stabilization Fund, the sum of $404,679.18 to the Capital Stabilization Fund?
That's what we said.
When is that what, yeah, that
Yes.
gives us the
All right.
flexibility.
So I
Yep.
rescind my motion.
The only flexibility it gives is taking it out of operating stabilization and into capital.
And usable, yeah.
It won't be usable till fall town meeting until we
see.
tell it where it needs to
To
go.
reallocate it.
But it will take a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote?
No, it still takes it.
It still takes 2/3?
Still takes 2/3
Yeah,
for the
it's
capital
under the policy,
stabilization.
it's two-thirds in and out.
Okay.
Is
But
there
it's-
any reason financial-wise to have it in one place or the other?
Not necessarily, it's just you're transferring it within capital, so it would be specifically for capital requests.
Oh, I mean,
versus-
interest-wise.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So in other words, Josh, you're
Yeah.
saying leave it where it is and then move it either to roads or to the police?
I guess it doesn't
I
matter.
didn't want to make sure that it wasn't getting a lower interest rate by just moving it.
Yeah.
No.
But we definitely are earmarking it for capital. and
Why-
Which is
yeah,
the
why
whole
don't we-
point.
Now, why don't we put into the capital? I think we should move
Yeah.
it. Okay, so, all right, is this a motion?
Yep.
I move that we amend Article 12 to read, to see if the town will vote to transfer from the operating stabilization fund the sum of $404,679.18 or a greater or lesser sum to the capital stabilization fund, or take any other action relative thereto.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So we're taking out for the purpose of paying the building repairs.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? All right, and then we have to,
And then an explanation, just generally that there's a new policy that we can use the operating stabilization fund interest. And the intent is for us to use it for a capital project to be identified by the fall, yeah.
Perfect.
and so we made a motion to amend this article, but we still need to make a motion to
Huh.
place the article on the warrant,
There was a motion, then discussion.
but then
Oh, I rescinded
that was
that.
rescinded.
Okay,
Yeah.
I missed that then.
I moved to place,
You're more alert than most of us. Good job.
I moved to place the amended, Article 12 as amended on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Mike, on the explanation, just keep in that the principal isn't touched.
Yes.
Okay. I move to place Article 13 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? I move to place Article 14 on the warrant.
Second.
Linda, we always have the question of, is this sufficiently cloistered into whatever you want to do for wages? I mean, this is future wage settlements.
The collective bargaining, yes, the COLA, not quite, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor? I move that we place Article 15 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Technically, I'm not sure you have to vote these.
No, and I think you could vote them as a group, because you
Yeah,
really
vote them as
don't have a
group 'cause you
choice.
have the-
Could
they're-
we have done that for the
No. These ones that-
CPC
Community preservation, we have,
Okay.
we could change the description slightly, but not the contents of it.
Okay.
We don't have the right to take these off. I mean, it's just, the point is,
Or even edit them
it's
out.
out of our,
Yeah.
it's our jurisdiction, not our jurisdiction.
So those, so Articles 16 and 17 we can do together?
You could do 15 through, 15
Policy
through
22. 22.
Amazing.
22.
Okay, so I move that we place Articles 16 through 22 on the town warrant.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? All right, I move that we place Article 23 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just want to read it before we vote on it.
Actually, I want, Lynn, just what's the reason for this again? I'm sorry for forgetting.
This is standard. I think it has to happen every.
Yeah.
Is it boilerplate?
So
Okay.
revolving funds are required to set an expenditure limit as part of Mass General Law. So we are just stating
Okay.
what the fund can be expended up to.
So it can't go, you don't want to be too high, like, that's all, okay, fine.
We've shifted this number up,
Yes.
right, over the past couple of years. If
Oh,
I-
right.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
You good?
All those in favor? Okay. All right, I move to place Article 24 on the town warrant.
Second.
It's
Any,
the same.
Same thing.
yeah, any further discussion?
So, well,
Lofty.
I don't think we'll get that high. Good luck.
We're doing better than we did last year.
$250 a pop.
Field of Dreams. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? All right. I move to place Article 25 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, what's the, I presume this is the veterans
Yes,
program? There needs to be
Explanation?
yes.
some, I mean, because
It doesn't-
reading it, there's not,
Yeah.
the word veterans doesn't appear.
So I plugged this in Friday afternoon once I realized that we already had the language. Now I just need to go back.
Okay, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
the way it
Yes.
reads,
This was
No.
just to make sure you were paying attention. This is,
No.
We, 25 and 26 need a lot of work on the explanations because we know that people need that. So we
Is
just
26
haven't,
the
we haven't
same?
had a chance to do it yet.
Yes.
26 is also.
They're one of
They
the
both
same.
are, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, maybe Rebecca knows, adopting Mass General Law provisions, simple majority.
I believe so. I'll check.
We'll look at that. I'll look into that.
Okay, anything else on this one?
Are you doing both of them together?
I only made the motion for 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? Okay. I move that we place Article 26 on the town warrant.
second?
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Article 27, this was in relation to getting the select board to act as the municipal light plant board. I think Lynn sent around the language offered by town council. This kind of ended up kind of going in a different direction than we originally discussed. From discussions with town council, it seemed to be that actually having a, or going about this process so that the municipal light plant board could be elected actually ended up being a more cumbersome process. And so, originally, we had all talked about wanting to potentially appoint the MLP board after the select board serves as the MLP board for the first 3-4 years, or however we see fit. And so town council came back and said that actually doing a charter change would be the best way to go about this, that would not involve multiple steps. And so they sent around the article language for that. So this is also just kind of, developed not too long ago, from this meeting. And so this was, something kind of newly to digest, and this article language was just sent over today.
How did this not come up before when we were talking about this?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened with the guidance that we were receiving, but, because originally when we had this discussion, we thought that there would be, we could have an article at town meeting, and then have a ballot question in the fall so that the select board could
To appoint?
to,
Or to
could
elect a board?
serve as the select board, I mean, because to serve as the municipal light plant board, and then, years down the road, we could turn into an elected board. But it seems like upon further review that a vote would have had to take, a vote would have needed to take place preceding annual town meeting. And so because of that, this whole process would have been kicked out until at least next year, and that would have been the earliest that a municipal light plant board could have been seated.
Well, I got
And
the
so-
impression that this wasn't possible at all. Getting a board appointed was, or getting a separate board is gonna be the worst way of all.
Yeah, and that's what we were originally told
Yeah.
at first as well. But I think upon further review and then basically looking into this more, that this seemed actually like the more doable option.
This seems ideal. So we don't have to appoint a board, we can.
Right. Yep. And then so we can serve as the municipal light plant board, and then when we decide to appoint a board, we can do so. Okay. Yeah.
We can do charter changes at town meeting?
You start the process there, you have to. Well, you don't have to, but
Right,
that's
we start the
generally-
process there, but that doesn't change the charter.
Right, it's the first step.
Okay, so I assume, don't we have to, at some point, like petition the legislature or something like to accept the charter change?
This is a special act to
Yeah,
petition to
that's
change the
something-
charter.
Yeah.
Right.
Need a motion, I heard earlier it's the motion that matters.
So I guess my question is, until this is accepted by the special act, we aren't the municipal light board.
So we do have certain capacity to act as the municipal light plant board, which is, why we were able to appropriate the funds for the fall special town meeting. And so we do have certain authority, and town council has said that they can provide more guidance on that if we need to. But we also do have time here because there's really no action for the municipal light plant board to take, for months still, until this kind of all gets figured out.
Yeah, my thought process beneath was two-step. One is to confirm that we're the municipal light board, and the other is to enact a charter change that then says, and you have the right to appoint the municipal light board down the road.
No, sorry.
We couldn't do that.
Didn't our town meeting in the fall we had an article or motion that gave us the powers? Or it said,
It created a municipal light plant board.
oh, but it didn't say who it is.
And then we have a
Okay.
formal opinion from town council that you are you can act in that capacity.
That's what it was, okay.
Yeah. And so as Vineeth was saying, there isn't a lot of business to transact right now, so if you want to wait, town council wasn't available tonight. I did ask that they come to speak to this because I knew there were going to be questions. They weren't available tonight. This is a time of year where their services are in demand everywhere. And we do have time to wait until the fall if you do want to have some more time to digest this and ask questions of town council. We could wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think this actually ended up being the avenue that seemed like we were most in favor of anyways, that we would like to appoint an MLP board, but have the ability to serve as MLP board until we decided to do that. And so I think this actually ended up kind of working out and aligning with what our discussion was.
Absolutely.
Plus, it's going to take a long time probably for a home rule petition to potentially pass in the legislature too, so.
Yeah, and sometimes they go in and they come out looking very different, and they go in and they come out saying, you need a ballot vote. So who knows what happens when we submit it, but it is the first step. I mean, you've probably dealt with this a lot, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I also think it's probably better to just get this moving.
I'll move we place Article 27 on the warrant.
Second. Is it 26 or 27?
It's 27.
I'm sorry, okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. All right, and then Article 28, right, Len, did you send that around?
Yes.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, so this is one related to the Special Act acceptance in 1988
Right,
that
right,
created preliminary elections. There had been an attempt some years after that it was adopted to rescind it. It was not successful. Haven't been able to figure out exactly why. We are one of the only communities in the Commonwealth that has this. I think we're one of two. It creates many, many challenges. Not the least of which is that the time period of 28 days between the elections is so compressed that it's almost impossible to get ballots in time. Town council has looked at this. I raised the question about whether our charter superseded it, because our charter is newer than the 88 article. That is definitely defensible, but the cleanest way to deal with this is to rescind it at a town meeting.
Yeah, Mark?
I guess I don't understand what we're rescinding. Are we rescinding the preliminary
Adoption.
election? Are we rescinding nonpartisanship?
No, you're rescinding the adoption of preliminary elections.
So that means this town going forward would not have preliminary elections.
That was a question that we had last time.
Yes.
Does it default back? Oh, no, okay. 'Cause
No
we asked if it
preliminary.
defaults back to.
So,
Okay.
but, I mean, that opens to me a whole question of, in theory, then you can get people elected with less than a majority of the votes. I mean, you have 3 people running for 1 seat, somebody can have 34% and win.
Yes.
Yes. Plurality.
Right. And that's different from where we are today, which the town adopted preliminary elections so that whoever got elected got a majority of the votes cast in the final election. So it's a significant change to not just the process, but to what the town is and how the town can elect people.
Yeah, so two things that come to mind. One is, this is also one that can wait till the fall if you want to, because by the time, we won't have a preliminary this would not be in place to have an impact by the time we have a preliminary. Secondarily, better or worse, we have not had a preliminary in many years. So.
Right, it's almost self-policing, but it may not be.
And then the third point I have is, if we're going to keep preliminaries, we need to change this time frame. It cannot be 28 days. It's unattainable.
Didn't we have?
I saw your face.
We had like 3 preliminaries.
That was a preliminary for a special election, that was called. That's
Still
the only
preliminary.
one.
Yeah, it's still
Well, yeah.
preliminary, yeah.
I mean, the other thing we could do is change to a,
Which, yeah, the dates were not followed. I don't know why, but the dates have not been consistently followed.
Should contest the results.
Oh, boy.
my purpose of this
Everything
is
you voted on in
is
2
that
years is-
there's been a group of people around who I haven't been involved with, but I like the fact that there's a talk about Massachusetts going to ranked choice voting. And that then addresses both the issues.
We talked about this a few years ago.
And I think we did. And I don't know where we ended up a couple. But
My eyes were spinning.
There's a lot of home rule petitions pending. A lot of communities are trying to go that route.
right, to rank choice, which to me then makes sure that whoever's elected, theoretically has the most people, majority of people looking for them, but it also can eliminate preliminary elections.
Well, you could still get elected without a majority.
In ranked choice voting, you
No,
can.
but under our current system.
If the second place
If
comes
3 people
in
running
like
for 2
very, yeah.
spots.
3 people running for 2 spots.
If
Someone
everyone
can get-
goes in and
someone
votes,
can
does
get 90% of the
bullet
vote,
voting.
and
Well,
the
it's
next
for
2
one
people
person.
get much lower.
I think that happened to me. That's why.
Right, but that's because of the way people vote, not necessarily because of the construction of
Well,
the
right,
election.
yeah.
As opposed to if you have 3 people running for 1 spot, you've constructed an election that, even if people vote for 1 person, somebody can get elected with.
Yeah, and the only way to
I mean,
fix it is by
my
choice.
sense would be to defer this if we could, but
I'm personally in favor of getting rid of the preliminary elections. I think it's onerous, expensive, and stressful. And I think that the town can choose who they want with a plurality. That's my opinion. That's all.
Okay.
And it'd be nice to get it over with.
I think we have to get rid of this. And I don't think, we wouldn't amend this, we would have to amend the charter, right? So if we want to push it off, that's fine, but we have to get rid of this regardless. I also, preliminaries, I tend to agree, it's $7,000 and a lot of man hours. And there are downsides to getting rid of them, for sure, and Mark is right that it could lead to some funky results, but we have to get rid of this at least. If we do it now or do it in the fall, it doesn't, I don't care, but.
by
The way
this you
it's-
mean the timing.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, just for reference, on the total number that we've had since the act is 6, since 1988.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at least in my preliminary, and then I think the year before me, there was, in
Oh, for school
2022,
committee.
there was a school committee preliminary.
Yeah.
I think the results basically of the preliminary mirrored the.
That's right.
The election itself, and I think to Mike's point too, with how infrequently this happens.
They did happen, I guess, now that you're talking about it, they did happen a little bit frequently over the last 2
We
years.
could have won
Yeah.
this election.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I mean, I think just kind of even going through the logistics and how we were talking about it, the amount that it would cost, and even if it's not 28 days, it's going to be, you know, maybe like a month and a half-ish apart. It just does not seem.
Historically, it would always
practical.
fall on the date of our annual town meeting.
Yeah.
That's just how it would line up.
Yeah, and I completely agree that if, you know, a talk around ranked choice voting or something is something that we should have, but I think for the time being, at least, we should rescind this.
And you know what, it might not even pass. It's not up to us here.
Yeah.
Is this 2/3?
Yeah, I think so.
There was,
Special act.
Adopting an MGL?
Charter change.
I don't remember if we ran this part by town council or not, the fact that it may have been a ballot vote, but I don't think they said it was, right?
It was.
It was, okay. But to rescind it doesn't have to be a ballot vote.
I'll move we place Article 28 on the ballot, or on the warrant, sorry.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? All right. I move that we place Article 29 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
This is the wording that we adopted earlier, I assume, right?
Yep. That's right. Anything else? All right, all those in favor? All right. Scroll down a bit. I move that we place Article 30 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mark?
This rescinds or modifies the prohibition of the Finance Committee from serving on any other.
Right, this is in tandem with Article 29. It just, I haven't put an explanation in yet.
But if there's another part of the charter that says the Finance Committee, no member of the Finance Committee shall sit on any other board or committee,
This is amending that.
and this just says the Finance Committee shall appoint one member to serve on the town's capital planning and building committee.
It's adding a section D. If you go to the charter, I am definitely open to suggestions on how you want it worded, but this was what I came up with.
My only point, Lynn, is it should probably say, other than what shows up above, you know, or they're appointed to the capital planning and building committee, but no other, you know, somehow it's got to acknowledge the other restrictions, I would think. right?
C says no officer or member of any other board or commission shall be a member of the Finance Committee. So that could, C has to have except as.
Right, that's what I'm
Except
saying.
as in section D below.
Right, that, somehow you've got to,
So then
Reference
you'll have
that.
another, we'll add another article to address that, unless I.
no, why
put
don't
it
we
in-
modify Chapter 2, Section 10 with two change
Can you change to?
C and then add D?
Yeah, yes, I will do that.
Right?
30.
Josh, thank you, that's what I was thinking, right.
This is actually quite important, so it's really good to get this right, because like when I was at the finance committee, this kind of thing would come up multiple times. Like, can I be a liaison? No, that's not allowed. So this is good to clarify.
Well,
So at the end of
they can't be the liaison
Right.
anywhere except for this.
So
That's
at the end of
clear, yeah.
210C, it would say, except as set out in
Subsection
subsections D below.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Josh, do you want to make the motion?
I lost my place. I move that we place Article 30 as amended on the warrant.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
And Lynn, you will be adding in I assume. Okay.
I move that we place Article 31 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? I move that we place Article 32 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So, I didn't think we had the authority to do anything with ADUs. And more importantly is the planning board or the zoning committee or?
Yeah, we can place, we're just placing it on the warrant.
Planning board
We-
held a hearing on it.
So the law.
They
said-
did.
Yeah, the law says you can't restrict, you can have reasonable restrictions on ADUs essentially, and you can't go beyond what the state law is. But we can put this, do we run this by council? So,
Yep.
yeah, planning board has,
So this
These are things we're allowed
allows
to do.
whatever the restrictions are allowed,
yeah.
this may have.
Because
Yeah.
basically what you have to do, you can put an ADU on, it has to follow it can't be any more restrictive than your single family guidelines.
Anything else? Okay. All those in favor?
Recommendation was voted by the planning board on that, and the following Article 2.
Perfect. Okay. Article 33 is the floodplain one. I move that we place Article 33 on the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Yeah. And is there 34, or is that when we start getting?
The 34 got
petitions?
moved to
Okay.
11.
All right, so Josh, do you want to, did you remember all that you said earlier?
No, Mike wrote that.
So Article 34 to 11, everything else gets pushed back.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's way easier than it sounded earlier.
I move we place Article 34 on the warrant as Article 11.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
We probably move 30, I move that we place Articles 35.
You don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Place them on, you don't get to. They're on the warrant because of petitions.
Oh, true, yeah.
Yeah, I think all that's.
You could discuss moving them
Reordering,
if you
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to,
okay.
but
Right, but you can't discuss
Anything,
putting them on.
anything else with the reordering? That was it? That was the one change we need to make?
Right, these all went to planning board, right?
So, commercial vehicle parking, front yard solar, side yard solar, all go to planning board. They voted on all three to not recommend all three of those articles.
Sorry, which three?
Commercial vehicle parking.
34, 37, 38.
Yeah, power equipment and unnecessary noise, and trucks and unnecessary noise does not require planning board.
Those are general bylaws.
General bylaws.
Okay, and they voted to not recommend 34, 37, 38?
Yep.
So, okay. Okay. And that was it for the reordering? There was nothing else?
Well, we reordered the other things, but
The blueberry chiller is going to go after the capital plan.
Yep.
I don't think we really need to move
That's
on.
clerical,
Because-
that's more of clerical.
Yeah, we moved to
Okay.
place them on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, then I move to close the 2025 annual town warrant.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor? All right, great. All right, what do we got next? Next up, we have an update from the Bottle Shop on their annual liquor license renewal. A letter was provided by the owner, James Thomas. One thing that I wanted to just kind of point out in here is I think that he actually made a mistake in identifying where he was beginning lease negotiations. He said it was the Trading Post Plaza, which is actually the plaza with Frankie's and One Way, but it's actually
not. I texted
Armada's.
you.
Was it?
It's not. Armada, that's Armada's Plaza.
Oh, I thought Trading Post Plaza was Frankie's, but I thought he just wrote the wrong thing
No,
here, and it's just
I
actually
was-
Armada's.
I was wrong.
Okay,
Yeah, I've never seen it called that, but that's what it is.
okay.
Oh, where Armada's is called it is the Trading Post Plaza?
Yes, apparently.
Yeah,
I just
there was a
learned that
Trading
earlier as
Post
well.
drugstore, and it got, when it was
I remember when there was
Geisler's.
an Esso gas station at the corner. Nobody else does.
Movie shops.
Well, that, everybody remembers that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually is Armada's.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
Figured that out like an hour.
same result, but yeah, I heard differently, but same result.
This makes more sense, it makes more sense.
Yeah, because there's no vacant spaces in that other plaza. So I was very confused by what was going on here. So, if I remember correctly, right, we had given Mr. Thomas until the end of March
Yeah,
to
so
come back
technically
with us.
90 days
so,
from January
yeah.
1st would have been April 1st.
Yeah.
You sure you didn't mean to say Trader Joe's Plaza?
Oh, gosh.
Gotcha. What else is to talk about?
Was our decision that, okay, now we got a letter, just let it ride?
Technically,
Well, no,
the vote
it's up to-
was a signed lease agreement or a
Purchase and
intent to
sale.
purchase
Yeah.
sale. So
Yeah,
you
and what
guys-
he's offered here is that there's been a delay in hearing back from the landlords, and that's why this hasn't progressed as far as it should have, but now it seems like he's got, whatever in place to move it forward, so it's really up to us on whether we want to give him more time or not at this point.
What's the status? He owns the liquor he's paid the liquor
Yes.
license and,
The only year that it was, we waived was the first year.
right,
Yes.
okay.
I'm very frustrated by all this. I think we've been more than generous, and I also, but I am sympathetic to what Jim is trying to do here and trying to negotiate with the landlords. That being said, and I don't want to speak for anybody, I would be comfortable saying, you have until our next meeting to show us a lease. And that's it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at too.
Now,
Josh, I hate to be obnoxious, or what?
We
the license is
the
gone.
license is back.
It
Fine.
comes returned to the town. Now, here's where I will say my hesitation. It places a lot of power on the landlords, and
Right.
who may, but there's not a lot of other places to go, and I get that. So I feel like we're in a bit of a bind, but it burned down 4.5 years ago, and I think we got to do something about it.
I agree. Our next meeting is May 5th. It gives them another month to come back with something.
But Josh's point about it turns the dynamics of the negotiation a lot, though. And I'm not sure that it's our role to insert ourselves in that negotiation.
No, but I mean, what else can we do? It's our role to make sure that the town is adequately served by the licenses we have available. And you can't keep a pocket license forever. And there are other places. That's not the only place in town where it could go. It's the most obvious and logical, but there are other places.
So I guess my question is for Mike. Are there other people who've come in and said, hey, is that, so
Yeah.
there are people who.
Probably a dozen or so over the last 2 years, yeah.
100%, yeah.
It's very valuable.
Yeah.
And so, the other thing I will say that can not to shift any dynamics elsewhere, let me modify what I would think, a signed lease or a signed purchase and sale agreement that is contingent on finding a lease somewhere. That, I wouldn't want that to go on forever either, but if we get that, then we can talk about timelines. And these things can, I just got a license, just at a closing, it took a year and a half from, for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is the location changed. So I think that if we, by May 5th, we either get a signed lease at the current location or a signed or a signed lease somewhere to move the license, or a signed purchase and sale agreement for the license.
Yeah. Yeah, that all sounds good to me.
Want to make that a motion?
And just one, or our last, we only renewed through the end of March, right? So are we, I guess we're extending it now, which is, all right, so I move that we approve the Bottle Shops, the Bottle Shop Incorporated, Inc. License through May 6, 2025, pending a submission of a signed lease agreement or signed purchase and sale agreement.
Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Mark?
I'm just uncomfortable with this dynamics, and Josh, I understand and I recognize the dilemma, and you know, you're kind of the expert on our liquor licenses here, doing it for a living, but I just wish there was some other way that we could compel some kind of a indication that there's progress, as opposed to sign the lease or turn it back in.
Well, or sell it to someone else.
Right, well, but as opposed to, you know, I am actively negotiating, or here's a, whatever it is, and I expect to have the negotiations completed by such and such a
Well,
time.
that I feel like we've done. We've given a lot of chances. I haven't run into this, but I feel like we are eventually at risk of getting sued by somebody who wants this license to compel us to get it back, because you can't, there's lots of case law on this, you just can't have a pocket license. You can't keep these things forever. And I don't know if that's possible. Theoretically it is. And I'm very, very sympathetic, and I wish there was a different way to go about this. I wish we had a bunch of commercial spaces you could take his pick, but we got to do something.
I agree, and I'd also, I don't know, Mike, if you are in communication with him between now and then, you know, he reaches out, I'd also encourage him to be more communicative with us,
Yeah.
because I don't think we've really heard much, you know, besides this letter, in a very long time. And so if there is meaningful progress or something, maybe that's just short or maybe on the 1 yard line, he needs to maybe come to our next meeting or something and communicate that.
You're right. We have shown that we're very understanding. We're really trying here.
Yeah.
Is it crazy for him to show like evidence of the communications? And
Yeah,
I mean, I just don't like. I don't know if we want to insert ourselves that far, but I'm just wondering, is that something that he could do in this situation? From a
It's in his balls in his court
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah.
How about have him show up here instead of sending us letters?
Yeah.
You could make a request that he comes to the next meeting if you want.
How often has he been in contact with you, Mike? Like, or is this-
We spoke once prior.
In 4.5 years.
No, a few times during annual license renewal, and then I think it got to the point where we brought it to the board, I think this past year, to just get a sense of what you're looking to do going forward. But a few times I've had some interactions with him, either by phone or in the office, just kind of asking for updates, and then when I went out, that's when actually the letter came in.
A lease negotiation probably wasn't even possible until last year sometime. We're just seeing things open again.
Yeah.
Josh, how about and I'm just trying to say, you know, get us a signed lease by the next meeting, or show up here and tell us why we shouldn't rescind it.
I'd be okay with that, yeah. I've said from the beginning, this is not something I want to do.
I get it. I'm just trying to, maybe, because when you're doing this all by, by emails and whatever, you don't get the, and maybe Pun Realty wants to show up and say, hey, he's not gonna sign the lease, so you might as well take it back. I don't know what they want to do, but.
And, I think that the motion is okay the way it is right now, and it's gonna be on the next agenda, and he can come.
But it implies, show us a signed lease or you lose the license, as opposed to show up a signed lease or show up and tell us why we shouldn't be taking the license away, and then put it on the agenda that if he's got no progress, we're gonna take the license away while he's sitting
Yeah, I
here.
mean, I can amend it to a signed lease, a signed purchase and sale, or come to the meeting and explain status.
Sure. That's more than status. Explain why we shouldn't be taking away your license.
No.
That's what you want, right?
Well,
That's what we
I
want.
mean, we could just make a decision at the next meeting
Yeah.
to make a new motion, to extend it further if he comes, shows up. That's why I was saying the motion seems fine the way it was.
Okay.
If you'd like me to add in the correspondence to Mr. Thomas that the board requests to meet with him at the next meeting, I can do that.
No, Mike, the problem with that, to me, is that just says, you don't have to worry about anything, just show up at the next meeting.
Right.
As opposed to, send us a signed lease, or you better show up at the next meeting to defend why you haven't signed it, because you're likely to lose the license.
Right, I understand, yeah.
I think it's a different,
I just think
applying something. different.
Josh's original motion just has, I think, the teeth necessary at this stage.
So what is Josh's original motion?
Sign lease or purchase and sale agreement by the next meeting.
So there's already been a second on this.
Yeah, I just don't understand the "or" is implied and not stated. We should state it, or that means nothing.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I don't, because it's not going to change what we do. We are either going to get a letter saying I have a lease in hand that's not signed, or just show up and saying it's not going well, here's my other options. So we could also say, all right, it's not good enough, and we're taking the license back. So I think there's no harm in adding to so he doesn't, if all he sees is the minutes of the meeting, he's like, oh, wow, that's tough. So, I mean, we already got the second, we can vote. I'm happy to amend it too.
Yeah, I think, I don't feel that strongly. I think we just need to vote on this, so if we want to amend it, so
Yeah, so
we move forward.
Move that the Bottle Shop Inc. submit a signed lease, a signed purchase and sale, or attend the next meeting to explain why the company should keep its liquor license for the May 5th meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, next up, we are now moving to new business at 10:02 PM. At the first item is the 2025 Arbor Day proclamation.
I move we declare Arbor Day as requested in the proclamation.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? And Mike, do you need us to sign this? or
I
can we do this
usually
electronically?
use the electronic signatures for this one, but,
Perfect, that sounds great.
and then I would be remiss if I said we didn't have Catherine Kukap here, Chair of the Tree Committee, to
Thank you very much.
I mean,
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this was an easy vote for us.
Yes, tonight it was.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. And then next we have the seasonal liquor license renewal.
I move we approve renew the seasonal liquor license for the Clubhouse Cafe at Franconia Golf Course.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Oh, it's all blank on the agenda. I thought I saw.
What? Wrong agenda.
This.
I just clicked on it.
Yeah.
I was able to get to it, but
which.
Oh, the
which are
seasonal certification is blank, sorry, okay.
Oh, yeah, so that, if we didn't renew, I would fill it in. Either way, we have to send it back just with our town's name on it, but other than that, if we approved them all, everything's blank.
All right, yep, great, sorry.
And all taxes, fees due to the town are up to date. Everything's in good standing.
Perfect, okay. I move that we approve St. Mary's Guild, two one-day liquor licenses for events to be held at St. Mary's Parish Center on April 24th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. and May 21st from 6:30 to 8 p.m.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, great. And then I move that we approve St. Mary's Parish for their one-day liquor license application for an event to be held at the St. Mary's Academy Gymnasium on June 3rd from 6 to 9 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Hey, Josh, I know this ABCC has a limit to the number of one-day liquor licenses on an annual basis. Don't they also have it on over a given period of time? Therefore, the question is St. Mary's Guild and St. Mary's Parish, and
These are all separate entities.
they're all separate, okay.
That's correct.
Look at, it's 50 anyway. It's
No,
quite-
over the year, but I thought over a month there was a...
Oh,
Yeah. If these were all the same entity, we would be running into an issue, I think,
Okay,
monthly.
that's what I thought.
But
Yeah.
we could probably look into that for the future.
But these are...
all separate entities, correct, yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
I move that we approve the Knights of Columbus Council 5406 and their one-day liquor license application for an event to be held at St. Mary's Parish on April 26th from 6 to 9 p.m.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
spelling.
I know, spelling.
All those in favor?
Gets difficult towards 9 o'clock.
Right.
I move that we approve the Long Meadow Adult Center Community Funds liquor license, one-day liquor license applications for events to be held on April 24th, May 1st, and May 6th.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? And the street closure application, I move that we approve the Meadowbrook Roadblock Party application for an event to be held from Long Meadow Street to Warren Terrace on May 3rd from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, good.
Move we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you.